of 881 LeBurg.
Royal Junction is an Indian family-style restaurant located on the first floor of the 420 building at 420 North Pearl Street, right next to the Climber Museum.
They're now offering a new menu with late-night bites after 10 p.m. and are open Monday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. If you would like to find out more or place an order, you can visit their website at rjellensburg.com or by calling them at 509-201-1012.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode, another week, another time, man, at the good old Vicky's Dungeon. Welcome! Oh, yeah, man. Another week. Sadly, it is the last ever episode I'm going to be doing in this studio, which is pretty rough, man. It makes me sad. To be completely honest with you, I never thought that I would do this show for this long. I mean, I know it's only been how long have I been doing this? I've been doing radio stuff on and off for the past 2 years, but this school year is pretty much the longest. It's pretty much been the time where I've been consistent, week to week the most, and gone all in on the full production of a show. And I didn't expect to keep up with it this long. I think it's been maybe I'm gonna say October, I think, was the first full-on video episode I did, something like that, maybe, or maybe it was November. I'm not sure if I remember, but it's been a while, man. It's been it's 8 months, I think, at least, that I've been doing this show. It's kind of crazy. I remember the first movie we reviewed on here. I think it was Pumpkinhead, and we did all the Pumpkinhead movies, but we did Pumpkinhead 1 along with I think Predator Badlands the same week, but I don't remember. Anyways, though, it's been a long time that we've been on here, man. It's a bummer that it has to come to an end on the radio, but like I've been saying for months, dude, we are going to transition to YouTube. We'll transition to other platforms. Pretty much once I get settled into a new city, a new area, we'll start it up again in about a month or two. So, it'll just be a little bit of a break, and then I'll start up the show again on YouTube. And then, but until then, you can just keep an eye on the Instagram and the TikTok, and I'll be uploading Reels. I'll go back to doing a lot more of that, and you can see the Vicky's Dungeon content there. There's a chance that it'll just become a full just kind of social media page where it's pretty much just all Reels. But you know what? It'll still be Vicky's Dungeon. It'll still be Vicky's Dungeon, man. But anyways, it's a bummer though that this is the last ever episode I can really do in the studio. It's a bummer, man. I kind of wish I started doing this show earlier, because I would love to honestly keep doing it over the summer. But with me graduating and me not being a student here no more, well, that means that I can't do the show in the studio here. It's a bummer, man. It's a bummer. But you know what? We're still going to have a good time on this last episode. We're going to ramble about our classic stuff of Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, horror movies, general nerdy stuff I've been consuming, and you'll hear some new sound bites and Eritang, dude, Eritang. But yeah, let's just get right into it, man. Let's get right into this last awesome episode. Let's get a hey yo, Scott Hall.
Hey yo!
Thank you, sir. Yeah, so why don't we get into the first segment of kind of the fantasy news area. Let's have Cersei Lannister cue us in with the Game of Thrones segment.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win, or you die.
Oh yeah, thank you, Cersei. That, of course, being Cersei Lannister of House Lannister, the most powerful family in Westeros, who was also the queen of Westeros for a while. I think, I'm not sure how long it was that Robert... I think it was pretty much right after he won Robert's Rebellion, he married Cersei. So I think she was queen of the Seven Kingdoms for roughly probably 20 years or so in the show, at least. Cause I know the show probably takes place over probably a few years. And, by the time it starts, it's been 17 years since she's become queen. So she was queen of Westeros for close to 20 years at least. So that's pretty cool. And Robert was king for about 17 before he sadly passes away at the beginning of the series. And was he a good king? No, he was not. He was not a good king at all. But you know what? at the end of the day, use a crying emote or crying soundbite that I'm saving that for later. Nice. Good way to start off the show when I accidentally click a soundbite. Let's just do it again. This is how I feel about doing the last episode. This is how I feel inside. Lord almighty, man. Bet you weren't expecting that. But anyway, that's so dumb. Oh, man. But anyways, yeah, you gotta love Robert Baratheon. But with the Game of Thrones segment, you know, I thought with this whole show, with it being the last one in the studio and the last episode for a while, I thought I would just kind of go over my kind of favorite aspects of each of the segments and just kind of, you know, just, of course, keep it structured and not too rambly. But, you know, I thought with this being the last episode, I would just kind of pour my heart out of, pour my joyousness, pour my nerdiness out on just why I love these kind of franchises so much and, you know, see what the rambling turns into. But, you know, but with Game of Thrones, like, I think I want to talk about first just my favorite bits of lore in the Game of Thrones universe, like the stuff that makes me just keep going back to it. And, I think what makes me just always want to go back to the universe itself is I think I just love that it's this melding of kind of gritty historical fiction with fantasy. And it's definitely low fantasy, at least during the Game of Thrones books. I know earlier in the history of Planetos or Westeros, like I know the world as a whole, the fans have nicknamed it Planetos. And because every continent in this world is just like, you know, you got Westeros for the west, you got Essos for the east, and then you got Sotheros for the south, or Southteros if you want to call it that. So Planetos, there you go. But, you know, I know that earlier on during the time of the Valyrian Empire or the Valyrian Freehold, that was when it was much more high fantasy. Because, you know, the Valyrians, I know we don't know tons about old Valyria. I know we don't know tons about it because it was destroyed, like completely destroyed in one day because, and you know, I will say, I feel like there's, well, Valyria being like the incredible empire that it was, it being the empire of the Dragon Lords, as amazing as it was, at the same time, I don't understand why they, like, chose to build the kind of center of the empire around, I think it was 7 volcanoes or something in like one area. You have 7 volcanoes or something like that. I don't know why I mean, I get it that that's where the dragons kind of got their source of, that's kind of like the area where the dragons could naturally be found. And also that's where, you know, you had the pyromancer, fire mages over there too. And that's where it makes sense to have it there. But at the same time, you're going to put your entire civilization around freaking volcanoes. Like, come on, guys. Like, you could, I don't know. I'm just saying. Like, I feel like they didn't have to. But I know that during that period, that's when the world was much more high fantasy kind of deal. And you have this empire that's filled with thousands of dragon lords and sorcerers and just full on high fantasy, because not only is it filled with people who can do magic and ride dragons and do stuff like that, but they also, because they have those two things put together, they also built these like incredibly over the top, like, you know, like miles ahead or like centuries ahead of their time level architecture buildings that almost look alien, like compared to everyone else in the world. So you have that going on too. And I know we don't know a lot about the Valyrian Empire because of it being destroyed in one day, like because all the volcanoes go off in one day, and then pretty much then by the time of the next day, by the next morning, all of Valyria is pretty much destroyed. And the only family left over, the only group of people left over in the world that still have dragons are the Targaryens. And the reason why they survived it is simply because they were living in one of the furthest outposts of Valyria, the one in the Blackwater Bay of Westeros, which was thousands and thousands of miles away. So of course they didn't, you know, get hit by the volcanoes, but pretty insane stuff. But the world goes from that to, if you fast forward to the kind of current era of Westeros and Game of Thrones, it's just pretty low fantasy because there are 3 dragons in the world that Daenerys has, but they're hatched from like magic and a bunch of other arcane stuff like lining up perfectly. Like you could honestly liken it to like just a straight up miracle that she was able to hatch the dragons from these petrified dragon eggs. You know, it's pretty incredible that Daenerys does it. It's really cool. But you have that going on, and then you have the White Walkers in the north with Jon Snow, and then outside of that, like outside of what's going on with the whites in the north, like the White Walkers in the north, and then what you have going on with Daenerys with her 3 dragons. Outside of that, there's really like there's bits and pieces of magic and stuff here and there. Like you have Melisandre, the fire priestess, who does that one trick where she has this kind of ghost, like she gives birth to like this ghost shadow assassin figure that kills Renly Baratheon. And then you have Lady Stoneheart happening as well in the books, where Catelyn comes back to life and vows her revenge on the Lannisters and the Freys and everybody that was involved with the Red Wedding. And then you have the Faceless Men helping out Arya. And I mean, there's definitely fantasy stuff in there, but compared to like The Lord of the Rings or like the Chronicles of Narnia or Harry Potter, of course, like this, it's like really low fantasy compared to it. And I really prefer low fantasy. I really like it for some reason. I think I just like that. I mean, I guess me just really liking, it probably just comes from me really enjoying Middle Age and ancient history and things like that. And also I really just have always liked playing video games of like Total War and Age of Empires, like strategy games where you like have a kingdom and then you can build armies and fight each other and things like that. I think me already really liking that, and then watching Game of Thrones where it feels like the fantasy stuff, like the magic and monsters and creatures are kind of more sprinkled on top of it, more just kind of adds just a new flavor to it as opposed to it being like this completely other thing. But I don't know. I mean, I liked high fantasy a lot more when I was a kid, and I loved Lord of the Rings and like what else? Like just anything much more over the top I loved when I was a kid, and I still love over the top stuff. But at the same time, I don't know. I guess as I've gotten older, I've just appreciated kind of more low fantasy stuff. But that's what I like about the Game of Thrones universe, is that it's very low fantasy, and it really kind of feels like, I don't want to say an accurate depiction. I feel like that's not an accurate thing to say, but I feel like with the Game of Thrones universe, I feel like it wouldn't be crazy to say that it's essentially like what the world would maybe realistically look like if middle age, like medieval Europe, what it could be like if it had the magic stuff there with it, maybe. I'm not really sure, but it feels like he just took the pre-existing world of medieval Europe and, you know, West Asia, Middle East, and then like North Africa. It feels like he took those parts of the world during the medieval period and then just sprinkled in kind of the most iconic, maybe, I don't want to say iconic, but anyway, he you know, George Martin probably just sprinkled over like his favorite bits of fantasy, and then just also turned a lot of stuff up to 11, particularly with like the castle sizes and things like that, and just made kind of a very pretty, I mean, honestly, there's so much more just kind of purely medieval stuff in it, and not so much fantasy kind of aspects that if you took those away, it could maybe still work, you know? And I think he even talked about how he considered, when he first was starting to write Game of Thrones, that he considered making it not fantasy at all, just purely a medieval themed story taking place just in an alternate medieval world. But there was no fantasy stuff there at all, which really you could argue would just be kind of like an alternate history. And I'm not sure why he chose to go with, like, you know, the fantasy aspects being added to it, but at the same time, but at the same time, like, I really just like the idea of just like a straight up alternate history taking place in another realm. Like, I just think that's really, really cool. Not alternate history in the sense where it's like still medieval England, only like it's a slightly different setup or whatever. I like the idea where he's like, no, it's going to be this huge continent. It's my alternate history is basically, what if medieval England or medieval Britain, for that, basically was an enormous like South America sized continent, and like what would happen then if like instead of it being a smaller island that was ruled by one king, what if it was an enormous continent ruled by these kind of foreign invaders? And I think that's a really interesting idea. But I really, really like the fantasy stuff in there regardless. Like I love all the dragons. I love the kind of arcane, kind of mystery, kind of mysterious history behind anybody who is a Valyrian and has Valyrian blood, because Valyria, like I said, was completely destroyed in a day. So like there's so much we don't know about it because it was just wiped off the face of the earth. And not only was it wiped off the face of the earth, but the ruins of Valyria are cursed in that world. Like anybody who's tried to go there, it doesn't turn out well for them in some way. I know there was a member of the Targaryen family who flew to Old Valyria on Balerion, and Balerion came back, but she didn't. And it's a really interesting thing. But so yeah, I mean, all that stuff added up, and also the fact that we're still in a medieval era of the world during Game of Thrones. Like, it just makes sense that all this would add up to us just not knowing anything really about the ancient history of Valyria. Like, that's like kind of like this. It's not really super different, because I think he has, like, George Martin has said that one of his inspirations for Valyria was the Roman Empire. And I think when you look at the trajectory of Planetos in terms of like kind of different civilizations existing over time, you can see Valyria as like just like a super high fantasy kind of, just a super high fantasy induced Roman Empire. And then it's destroyed in one day. And then you fast forward like about half a millennium later, and that's when we pretty much officially enter the like medieval period. I know in the real world, the fall of the Western Roman Empire was like 300 something, and then the medieval period I think starts in like roughly the 1200s. I think that's when people kind of settle on. I think it's like roughly 1200 is when the medieval era begins. I think, I could be wrong. So it's like a little under 1,000 years before the medieval period. And then the world of Game of Thrones, it's about, I think, 400 years between the time of Game of Thrones and the fall of Valyria. So it's pretty interesting stuff. But another thing that I think is interesting that I've always genuinely wondered why this didn't occur is why the Valyrians never conquered Westeros. Why they pretty much conquered a huge piece of Essos, and then the rest of Essos pretty much were brought to heel at the Valyrians because nobody could defeat them. Because, we know that in the Game of Thrones universe, we know that having a dragon is like having an unbeatable war machine. Like, these things they're these huge fire-breathing flying beasts. So like, one, they're huge. So like, they're a huge intimidating like reptilian beast. So that's like already by default makes them much basically like much more lethal than the average military unit that you have. And then on top of that, though, their skin, like, arrows can't penetrate their skin. Like, the only way we've been able to kill dragons in the Game of Thrones universe, the only way they've been able to do it on a consistent basis is they've had to shoot like these like 10 foot or like 6 foot or whatever they are, at least the height of a person, length, like metal spears at them. That's the only way they've been able to like shoot them down. And then, and if it's not that, like, they just die in a dragon fight. Like, it's either you shoot them down with a scorpion bolt, or they die in like a dragon battle, or other isolated incidents they've been defeated or killed. But, they're these giant reptilian beasts, and they have skin that's like too thick for arrows or regular swords to penetrate. And on top of that, they fly, like, which pretty much, that makes them formidable enough right there. And then they can breathe fire from above at a level where they could just incinerate entire armies. And then to top this all off, a person, particularly people with Valyrian blood, can bond with a dragon. It doesn't work out every time, but it's possible enough. Of course, we know that, a person could ride and command a dragon. And so when you have a dragon rider, we see this with Aegon and his sisters Visenya and Rhaenys. When you have 3 dragon riders, you can essentially conquer a continent. Like, it's not easy, but you can do it, and that's what they did. And so, where was I? I kind of lost my train of thought. But Okay, so what was I talking about? I was oh yeah, okay. So we've talked about how all those reasons adding up are basically mixing these invincible war machines in that world. And in the time of the Valyrian Empire, dragons were like at an all-time high. Like they had thousands of dragons, and they probably had some dragons, like they probably had at least a few that were bigger than Balerion, the Black Dread. And Balerion is like just a unit of a dragon. Like I think a friend of mine told me he has like a 700-foot wingspan, which is pretty incredible. And his head is so big that like he could swallow a horse's whole and stuff like that. Just pretty cool stuff. But and also we know that Vhagar in the House of the Dragon series, we know that she's pretty close to Balerion's size, but I think she's like maybe like 3/4 of his size. Like he's still like noticeably bigger, even like with Vhagar having like over 130 years to just keep growing, because in that universe, dragons just don't stop growing. They're one of the animals that just grow forever. And Balerion, even when he died, I mean, he was like 250 when he died, but I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that Vhagar is a little bit older than him at that point, and she's still not even close to him. Well, she's close, but she's still like is still noticeably smaller than him, which is pretty cool. But when you look at the old Valyria times, like, you know, they essentially had like entire like I don't think legion is the right word, like whatever the name is for a group of air units, but you know what I mean. They basically had like an army of dragon riders fighting for Valyria, which is pretty incredible. And so that alone just made them like invincible. And also Valyria itself was known for having thousands of, you know, actual sorcerers and like blood mages, I think, and pyromancers. And we see a few of those in Game of Thrones, but like they're pretty sparse, like they're few and far between. Whereas in Valyria was just kind of commonplace. So it's pretty, we know that about it. And I like that it's kind of arcane, that we don't know much about it, but what we do know makes it seem like there's so much going on there. And I really like how that's kind of a similar kind of, I don't know if correlate is the right word. It kind of correlates. It's similar, there you go, to our real world, where imagine people who had like, who knew for a fact they were descendants of Romans, you know, or descendants of powerful Roman families, like in the Middle Ages. Like they probably thought of themselves similarly to how the Targaryens think of themselves, where they think of themselves as kind of like, you know, yes, that empire is gone, but like us being descendants from these powerful families of Rome makes us separate from other people, makes us by default higher up. I mean, maybe that's what they thought. And I mean, in the Game of Thrones universe, you can understand why the Targaryens would think that, at least, because, you know, it's not like they were just descendants of like ancient Romans or ancient Roman families. Like these people literally were one of the few people in the world that were, you know, able to tame dragons at that point in time. So of course they at least definitely thought of themselves as above. And also combined with the fact that they had, all of them pretty much had like purple eyes and white hair, and they had very distinct Valyrian features, definitely made them probably think of themselves as like above everyone else. But it's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting. And I just kind of, I mean, I'm just on a Roman Empire kick. I'll talk about that later. That's in my notes of just like content I've been consuming when I talk about that later. But I'm on a huge Roman Empire, like ancient Greece kick right now. Like I just love listening to it. I remember I was driving, and I was driving the other day, and I had a long drive. It was like hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. And what made the drive just go by like that combined with just having a cup of coffee because it was late and I didn't want to fall asleep at the wheel. The two things that kept me wide awake, surprisingly wide awake the whole way home, was me just having a nice hot cup of gas station coffee, hell yeah, and having a 2.5 hour podcast on about the Roman Empire. And that was pretty solid. Kept me wide awake the whole way home, surprisingly. I was actually like, it was kind of freaky. I was like, wow, this like gas station coffee is like powerful. I feel like wide awake right now. All right. I'm just happy I'm not going to fall asleep at the wheel. Sounds good. And then when I got home, just had a complete caffeine crash and was out like a light. But anyways, but yeah, that's like my favorite thing about Game of Thrones. Like to me, it's like the coolest parts of real world medieval history mixed in with fantasy. I really just like that a lot. And I like how the Valyrians are just like a fantasized version of the Roman Empire. Like you could say that. And I like that it's arcane. And there's like to the point where we have theories like about, you know, like the dragons. I don't know if this is confirmed or not, but we know that prior to the Valyrian freehold being founded and becoming this big empire and the mages, like the fire mages and all that kind of stuff happening, we know prior to that that dragons existed, but they were more just pure wyverns. Like they didn't breathe fire. And I don't know if that's like default with wyverns. But anyway, we know that dragons existed, but they were just kind of these winged reptiles that didn't breathe fire. And we also know that at the same time of them existing in the volcano area, there were fireworms that existed where they didn't have wings or probably legs either, I think, but they could breathe fire. And there's theories that the Valyrian fire blood mages kind of were able to just combine them together, and that's how they created the dragons, where they were a combination of fireworms and just kind of these winged reptilian wyverns that didn't breathe fire. And that's what created these incredible, undefeatable war machines. And I feel like the thick hide that spears can't get, or arrows and swords can't get through, I feel like that probably came from the fireworms too, because, you know, if you're living in a volcano, that probably makes sense that you'd have like very thick, stony skin maybe. I'm not really sure, but that's just my personal theory. But I think that's really cool because it's a really interesting origin to like an already pre-existing, arguably most iconic creature on all of fantasy. I mean, I think it's safe to say the most iconic creature in fantasy is a dragon. I feel like maybe goblins are pretty close behind that, but I don't really know. But yeah, that's what I love about the world though. I love that. And I love that there's other than the Roman Empire and stuff like that, I love that there's actual like historical inspirations for a lot of the characters and events. Like we know that the Game of Thrones conflict is like very much like the Wars of the Roses in England, when the different families of Britain were fighting over the throne of Britain in the UK, which I think is really cool. We know that Joffrey Baratheon is, I believe, based on, I think, a French king who was like this like 10 or 14-year-old kid who just was like crazy with power maybe. I think it's safe to say that Aerys Targaryen is very much based on just like the kind of mad emperor like Caligula or Nero and just people like that. And I don't know, I think it's really cool. And we also know that the wall, I mean, if there's anything that's like a direct like inspiration from the Roman Empire, was the wall, because of Hadrian's Wall. And if anybody doesn't know this is like one of the few things that I feel like not enough people talk about in the like kind of, I don't know, I feel like it would just be cool like if in history classes we learn more about this little section of history. But the wall in Game of Thrones is based off of Hadrian's Wall. And Hadrian's Wall is in Britain. It's pretty much really close to the southern border of Scotland. And I think it was originally just like the border for Scotland. But anyway, I forget who was Hadrian. That was the emperor at the time. During the time of the Romans taking over southern Britain, which was today just modern day, pretty much England and Wales, during that time, once they'd gotten as far up as they wanted to, I think I read that they just didn't think there was really a need to go further up north than they'd already gone. I don't really know exactly why, but since that was kind of the edge of the world to them at that point, Hadrian commissioned to have just a wall like built over the entire northern border of the Roman Empire in England. And I mean, that part of the world, I think the length of it, it definitely stretched across like the entire like north border from east to west coast. So that was, and I read it was about 70 miles. So it's not like Great Wall of China, like hundreds of miles long, but still that's impressive. And I think it ranged from like being like 30 feet to like 10 feet in some areas. It just kind of depended on the terrain, but that's still really cool. And the whole reason they built it was because they believed, since this was the edge of the world and this is like the ancient times, like early hundreds kind of deal, they believed that beyond that was probably monsters and like crazy people and just kind of a lawless, crazy world, you know, further beyond. So to protect the Roman Empire, they built this 70-mile long wall. And it's pretty interesting. And it's still there. The remnants of it are still there. You can go see it. And I think George Martin, he talked about how he was on like a tour guide or just a tour of Hadrian's Wall, and he said, yeah, I was there with a friend of mine, and it was kind of getting late in the day, like it was like kind of the sun was starting to kind of go down, and people were starting to leave. And so it got to the point that pretty much all the tour buses had left, and it was just me and my friend pretty much at the wall. And the sun hadn't completely gone down, so we could still very much see it. So I went and just sat on one of the top of one of the kind of remnants of it that's still there, and I just looked out into the, just into the north that is Scotland, and just kind of imagined to myself, just kind of pretended that I was a Roman legionnaire or Roman soldier, just looking out and just tried to imagine what it would be like to be looking over this wall as a soldier and think to yourself and believe that this is truly the edge of the world, and you have no idea what is beyond that. And it very well could be monsters and stuff like that. And I think that's just really interesting to think about, but that's where his idea for the wall came into be. And in the Game of Thrones universe, like, yeah, we don't really know much about what's north of the wall. And I just think that's really interesting. So that's like a lot of my favorite aspects of it. But yeah, in other segments or in other aspects of Game of Thrones, let's talk about probably my predictions for the Winds of Winter. I'm still not completely done with the books. Sadly, the thing about me with books is like, I think it's understandable, first of all, to take breaks when you are trying to read like a book that's almost 1,000 pages. Like if somebody bought a 1,000 page book and they told me that was the only thing they read for like weeks and then they finished it, I'd be impressed. Like, I guess my attention span is way too short because I have to take breaks a lot of the time. I pretty much am trying this system now where I'm keeping like 3 to 4 books in my rotation, and I cap it at 4. Like 4 is like kind of pushing it, to be honest. And I pretty much will try to focus on one book at a time, and I'm just like, all right, try to read at least like 100 pages. And if you want to take a break after that, sure. But either way, try to at least read 100 before you switch to the next book. Like, make some decent progress. And the Game of Thrones books, like, it's just, I wish they weren't so long. I love that they're so long because there's so much depth there. There's so much going on because of that. But I wish I could just finish them already. But anyways, my personal predictions based on the knowledge that I do have, I feel like I'm not really sure if we're going to get Jon's parentage revealed in the next book, but it's very likely. Probably towards the end of the book maybe, or maybe in the beginning of A Dream of Spring. But I do know that Jon is most likely going to be resurrected and brought back to life. I don't think that's crazy to say. And I do think that also he will, when he is resurrected, it's going to be different when he comes back. In the show, I will say, like, of course I thought it was cool that he came back to life and everything in the show. Like, that was really awesome and everything. But at the same time, to be honest, I kind of just don't love that you see characters like Beric Dondarrion in the show say, like, yeah, like, I've been resurrected, like, a bunch of times. But every time I come back, like, I feel like there's a part of me that's missing. And so every time it happens, I just feel more and more empty. And in the show with Game of Thrones, when it happens to Jon, like, he just seems like pretty much the same guy when he comes back. And I feel that was maybe somewhat of a misstep. I feel like in the books, he's much more likely to come back as a different person. Because in the books, when Lady Stoneheart comes back, when Catelyn Stark is reborn as Lady Stoneheart, she is night and day, like, completely different human. Like, she's basically just like this undead zombie that's like hell-bent on revenge. And you see Beric Dondarrion also coming back differently every time. And Jon, I feel like because of this, he's probably going to come back. Maybe I'm predicting that he's going to come back as a person who, I know in the books he's much more kind of politically strategic, and he's not so much like this he's a lot closer to just an Aragorn figure in the show, where he's just trying to like do right and do it the best he can. And that kind of gets the best of him sometimes, where he'll try to just play the honor card all the time. And that's one of the reasons he gets put into some sticky situations sometimes. He gets that from his dad, Ned Stark, or his perceived dad. But I think in the books, when he comes back, he might let go of any of that he does still have. And he'll probably just kind of just be just pure focused on defeating, the White Walkers in the North. Like, I think in the books, they're just called the Others. But I think he's going to come back and probably he'll probably look physically different. I think it'd be cool if he did. I remember watching Alt-Shift-X's video on Jon Snow and him talking about how it's possible because Catelyn Stark came back looking very different when she was reborn. It's likely that Jon might come back. Maybe he'll come back with a kind of like petrified white hair and maybe more pale skin or something like that, and that'll make him kind of resemble his possible real father, Rhaegar Targaryen, and that would be cool. But I think at the very least, Jon will come back as a much more purely focused, kind of maybe slightly less emotional, well, like just kind of lack a little empathy kind of guy. I feel like he'll just be more kind of ruling with an iron fist, like, don't mess with me, we're going to get this done, we're going to defeat the evil to the north, and if you get in my way, I feel like he'll probably just become somewhat of like an anti-hero, where he's like, all right, I'm going to do the right thing, but also if you step in the way, like, it's not going to be good for you. And I think that might maybe make fans feel a little kind of mixed up about him. They might think, oh, he's not just like this naive kind of like good guy just trying to do good. He's honestly kind of he's a very headstrong, like at times morally questionable person now. He's so hell-bent on, you know what, actually, I feel like, this just came to me now, I feel like he might be a little bit more like his very, very distant relative Bloodraven. Bloodraven, of course, being at this point, basically, well, not ancient, but like super, super old, because he's magically old, the three-eyed raven. I forgot to mention that's the other major magical thing going on in Game of Thrones, is the tree wizard, the three-eyed raven. But what was I going to say? But Brynden Rivers, who is Bloodraven, he, I think in the show it's called the Three-Eyed Raven, and then in the books it's the Three-Eyed Crow, and then he's given the nickname Bloodraven, and then his birth name is, his birth name was Brynden Rivers, and because he had a birthmark, like this red birthmark on his face, so it was kind of shaped like a bird, he got the nickname Bloodraven, and then when he became the Three-Eyed Crow, like that's just the title I think he took on. But in the show, they changed it to Three-Eyed Raven. And I guess that works in terms of simplicity because just it works with him being called Bloodraven. But I like Three-Eyed Crow. I think that just sounds cooler. But anyways, we know that Bloodraven was first sent to the Wall because he pretty much dishonorably killed Aenys Blackfyre. And Bloodraven prior to this was this very ruling with an iron fist kind of guy who will do anything. Like he's very much a person that is like the ends justify the means, and because of that, this guy was like just so gung-ho on doing, like this guy did not care about being honorable or not, or being a good guy or not. Like he was like, if it means, because he was part of the Targaryen family and he ruled as Hand of the King, and he was the spy master as well. And he was also rumored to be a dark sorcerer who like messed around with blood magic and things like that, which I feel like might be true with him, because in one of the Dunk and Egg stories, like it's pretty obvious, or at least it really looks like he's been shape-shifting like throughout the story up until his like weird, almost Deus Ex Machina level, like, entrance at the very end to save the day. So anyway, that's another thing though. But with Bloodraven, he was very dishonorable on multiple occasions, where he, like the big thing was he would, is him pretty much saying to Aenys Blackfyre, and at this point we've already had, I think at this point it's been 4 Blackfyre rebellions at this point, and we're dealing with a succession crisis with the Targaryens, because I think because most of the family I think has been, Mycor is killed, and his son Aerion is dead, but we know that Aerion was exiled from the realm, and pretty much the 3 claimants to the throne came down. No, was it 3? Or 4? There was 4. There were 4 possible Targaryen kings, like heirs. One was Maegor, the son of of Arion, who was exiled, but he wasn't. People were just like, no, this kid is like the son of a crazy person. Like, no, we're not going to have him be king. The next option was, I don't think her name was Helena, or was it Alyssa? I forget, but she was called Simple-Minded, and that's where they're like, no, we're not going to have her as queen. And also, it's worth noting that in this society, she's a woman, and that's doesn't really fly with a lot of people in terms of who they want to be their ruler. Just an aspect of feudal society, sadly. And then the third option was Aegon Egg from the Dunk and Egg series, but people were like, well, the court was like, well, this guy basically was raised as a peasant with this hedge knight, Duncan the Tall. Like they were basically like, he's like half a peasant at this point. I don't think we want him to be king. Like they were just like, ugh, this is like, but in reality, like that's not obviously that's not a super good reason. It makes him much better as a king, the fact that like he spent like a good chunk of his life living among the common people and then a good chunk of his life living with royalty. It's a good mixture of an upbringing if you're going to be king one day, in my personal opinion. Makes you have a much more well-rounded sense of what people generally want and need in a medieval realm, at least. But because people don't like peasants and stuff like that, the royalty look down upon them. They are just like, no, we're not gonna have a peasant rule us. Like, And the last option, and the other option was Aemon Targaryen, who at this point is a maester in the at the what's it called? It's the Citadel in Old Town, and he refused the throne. He didn't want to be. He's like, no, I know I'm a maester, but like I know you could just like pardon me and revoke my oath that I gave to be a maester for the rest of my life, but no, I don't want to be king. I'm good. And we see Maester Aemon at the Wall in the Game of Thrones series, and he's like, I think he's like 101, like he's up there. But the fourth claimant to the throne was Aenys Blackfyre, who is currently at this point living in Essos across the Narrow Sea, like in exile, like safe from the Targaryens. And of course, obviously it's a pretty ballsy move because not only is he, an exile of the Targaryens, but he's also like a descendant of this usurping line. Like he's part of this family, which at this point are very much still alive. And he pretty much took his chance and arguably probably had the best like approach to this. He probably like strategically, had the best approach to trying to be king, because the four Blackfyres before him, the four Blackfyre pretenders before him, of course took up arms, and the only one that came remotely close was Daemon Blackfyre the First. Daemon the Second, not even close, even having like a proper setup. Like it's weird that we even call it a rebellion. It was really just a failed uprising. And the third one and fourth one, just not even close. And also the fifth one too. But anyways, if I have my facts right, but Aenys Blackfyre is like, yeah, like, why don't you guys have me be king? Like, I know that the Blackfyres have, like, tried to usurp the throne a bunch of times, but keep in mind, we have Targaryen blood. Like, Daemon the First, like, he is the son of Aegon Targaryen the Fourth and Shiera Seastar. Oh, wait, no, not Shiera Seastar. Was it Shiera or was it Diana or Deanna? I forget, but he is the son of two Targaryens. Like, that's who Daemon Blackfyre was. Like, the only reason he was a bastard is because they just weren't married. That's the only reason he wasn't given the Targaryen name. So he really, by blood, is a true Targaryen. So he was like, so at this point, his, like, I think grandson at this point, Aenys Blackfyre the First is like, hey, guys, like, I know we've had a rough past, but like I have the Valyrian blood in me. Daemon Blackfyre the First was a true Targaryen by like a technicality. So maybe I could be king. I won't I'm not saying I'm going to come across the sea and try to take the throne with an army. I'm just saying maybe humor me. Maybe let me come over and say my piece. And if you don't want me to, I'll just peacefully go back and we'll be all good. And then Bloodraven, being the very deceitful kind of sneaky guy that he is like, yeah, why don't you come over? I promise we won't do anything to you. And of course, right when Aenys gets there, they immediately kind of imprison him and then he beheads him. And then during the council meeting that he pretty much comes in with the head of Aenys Blackfyre and drops it on the ground or something. And it's like, yeah, no traitors to the throne. Nobody is going to F around with the Targaryens. And once they chose Aegon, Egg, to be king, the first thing he did was like, nah, dude, this is not cool. You're done. Like, you're going up to the wall. Like, you promised this guy safe passage. He was acting peacefully. He was just going to come over and say his claim, and you just behead him? Hell no, dude. And so he just sends him up to the wall. And that's how, Bloodraven becomes the Three-Eyed Crow. Is while he's up there, he somehow finds his way into, like, blood magic again and all that stuff. But I feel like, circling back to John, I feel like that's what John will probably become more like. I'm not saying he'll be Bloodraven level of deceitful, but and like kind of ruthless like Bloodraven. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was just a much more ruthless version of himself. And another thing that makes Bloodraven pretty much seen as like this very dishonorable, sneaky, deceitful guy is also during the first war of during the first Blackfire Rebellion. The reason why Daemon Blackfire dies is Daemon Blackfire fights the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard during the Battle of the Redgrass Field. He fights Gawain Corbray, and Daemon Blackfire was like, I don't want to ramble too much about the Blackfires, but then again, I love the Blackfires. But Daemon Blackfire was known as like a pretty decent, charming, honorable guy. And it's much more likely when you look at the entire history and the whole big picture, it's much more likely that Bittersteel, his half-brother, who was also son of Aegon IV, it's much more likely that Bittersteel was really just like using Daemon to... It's pretty obvious that, or not, I don't want to say obvious, but it really looks like that it's more likely that Bittersteel really pushed and like probably gaslit Daemon and just really deceived him and manipulated him into rebelling, because he knew if Daemon did, everybody would follow him. And if Daemon rebelled and he won, that would put Bittersteel as Hand of the King, like the second most powerful guy in the realm. And not only would he get that, but he would also be able to kill Bloodraven in the process, because Bloodraven was like his sworn, like bitter rival since he was a kid, basically. And also it also is worth noting that they also were in a love triangle where they wanted the same girl. And Bittersteel was extra bitter that girl ended up choosing Bloodraven. And you know what, man? It happens, man. I don't think you should start a war over it, but I mean, that can happen, though. That can happen. But, man, it's good that I got a Celsius before this. I was like a little tired. Dude, today I tried to like be really productive, and I made sure to prep for the show and everything. But, dude, like, I was so tired when I got up. I even got a Starbucks coffee, and that wasn't enough to wake me up. And I ended up just like doing like a tiny bit of work for a few hours, and most of it was just spent me laying down and just dozing off. And then I was like, I just got to take a nap. And then I took a nap, and then woke up and just finished prepping the show. And I just was, I don't know, it was, at least I prepped the show. But anyways, what was I going to say? And I sent one work email. Today, so that was good too. What else about the Blackfire stuff? But with I hope you guys are following me this whole time. Sorry if I'm too rambly, but I just like to talk about this. This is why I started the show. I wanted to ramble about stuff I loved, and hopefully you guys would enjoy it. Right, Brody? Where is it? Oh wait, I don't have that. Never mind. I thought I had the enjoy it thing. Weird. Well, you know what? At the end of the day, I still got
positive energy.
At the end of the day. That's so weird. Where did it go? I thought I still had it. I must have replaced it with one of the new sound bites without realizing it. But during the Battle of the Redgrass Field, Bloodraven, who's also the half-brother of Daemon Blackfire, at the end of Daemon Blackfire's fight with Gawain Corbray, Daemon was like pretty much like an honorable, decent guy. I don't want to say he was perfect, but I think he was at least a decent guy. And the thing that sealed the deal for me is right after their epic duel, and Gawain Corbray falls. He doesn't die, he falls. He's beaten by Daemon Blackfire. Daemon pretty much tells his men, grab this guy now and take him to a maester so he can get his wounds healed. Like, but do not hurt him. And I don't think that was just an honorable thing, in my opinion, to do, because he wasn't just like capture him and that's it. He was like, no, grab him and take him and nurse him back to health. And I'm assuming if he was fine, he wouldn't let him go. I don't know. You never know. But during that time when Daemon is like having his guys come over, Bloodraven sees the opportunity, and Bloodraven wasn't a swordsman. I mean, he could fight with a sword, but his predominant weapon was a bow. And him with his personal bodyguard, which has such a cool name, the Raven's Teeth, who are like his personal bodyguards slash like unit of archers that are with him. They take that opportunity to just rain fire on Daemon Blackfire, and that's what kills him. And the reason why it's seen as a very dishonorable thing is they were half brothers, and in Westeros, in that culture, kinslaying is like a thing that like that's a like permanent like. That is a permanent stain on your reputation for the rest of your life. Like, it's like if you kinslay, like in Westeros, like that's like the same thing as like, I don't know, like that's like the same thing as, I don't really know what to compare it to. But anyways, if you kinslay in Westeros, like that is something that will affect you for the rest of your life. People will, it's one of the worst crimes you can commit in Westeros is kinslaying. And that's what Bloodraven did, and it was all in the name of the throne. And then he also dishonorably kills Aenys Blackfire, and he probably did other stuff too. And he also just had like a weird reputation, and just all this stuff added up made Aegon, when he was first king, go, you know what? You're done. Let's just get rid of you. I can't really trust you. You're really deceitful. You're dishonorable, and honestly, I can't really trust you. So, but I can see Jon turning maybe more like his uncle Bloodraven. And Bloodraven in the, I just call him Bloodraven just because I like that one the most, but Bloodraven in the show is very much like this wise old man figure. And I think in the books, I haven't gotten to like his part yet, but I think in the books, he's much more creepy, I think, and weird. And he, honestly, it's kind of morally questionable, the stuff he does for the quote unquote greater good, because in the books, he's, trying to like, the reason why he's like this tree wizard and stuff, and why he's trying to turn Bran into the next tree wizard and stuff like that, and why he's in contact with the children of the forest, is so that he can stop the White Walkers from coming. And people think that he's doing it. I mean, I feel like a lot of book readers kind of have this idea of like he's still kind of doing morally questionable things. Like, does he really need to turn Bran into this magic tree boy? Isn't there like another route he can take? I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jon turned out more like him. I don't know, but that's like my big prediction for Winds of Winter. I think my other prediction that I think is going to happen is I think Aegon, who is most likely a Blackfire, I think that he might be revealed as a Blackfire, but I'm not really sure. But I just really want him to. I'm going to say that he probably is a Blackfire, because when you look at the chapters and stuff like that of everybody talking about the if you look at the pre-existing chapters, the first drafts of the chapters that have Aegon in it, if you look at the first draft, I don't want to say it's the first, but like a much earlier draft before it was published of the chapter where Tyrion meets Aegon and his whole group, including John Connington and Illyrio Mopatis, I think that's his name, all those guys. In the earlier drafts, there's much more talk about the Blackfires, as if George is trying to explain to the reader what the Blackfires are, so that maybe later, if Aegon is revealed to be a Blackfire, you'll know what that is. I mean, prior to it, we have a few mentions of the Blackfires in the books, but I think that draft is like the only time where he thoroughly goes into it. And I think that, along with Illyrio mentioning the Blackfires, I think, and then Tyrion's well, the Blackfires are extinct, and then Illyrio was like, yeah, but he doesn't say not through the female line. He just very firmly says they're extinct through the male line, and it's just worded in a way where it's like, well, I think he was trying to like say without saying it that they are still around just through the female line, so that their blood is still around, and that Aegon is very likely a Blackfire. And I think it's also George probably. I think he might be using him as like just as another narrative to show that like it doesn't matter if you're a Targaryen or a Blackfire. If you are a person suited for the throne, then that it shouldn't matter what blood you have. Like at the end of the day, if there's a Targaryen or a Blackfire, if the Blackfire is just much more equipped to be a ruler and the Targaryen isn't, we shouldn't choose the Targaryen just because he's a Targaryen. So it's that classic just critique of feudal monarchy systems. And Aegon, I think, might become king because he physically looks like a Targaryen. Like, he has the white hair. I think he has the purple eyes as well. In the books, he dyes his hair blue, I think, as well, just to kind of hide his identity. But he also has the sword Blackfire. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We are pretty sure he does, but we're not 100% sure. But he looks like a Targaryen, and he's pretty much been raised from birth to be king by Illyrio and Varys. And he's, not just been raised in the sense of like a normal princeling upbringing. Like this guy has like lived in the slums, like and with like the worst, kind of conditions. He knows what it's like to be hungry. He's like been, taught in history and military and just all the in philosophy and all this stuff. And, he's also learned to fight. He's learned to, he's throughout his life, he's not just been taught how to do things. He's actually lived experiences on how to become a good ruler and stuff like that. So I think that combined with the fact that he has the Golden Company, the most powerful mercenary army in the world, and they're already winning in the books at this point. They've already taken a few castles in the Stormlands, and I think they're currently besieging Storm's End. I think all that added up will make it seem like, okay, like this guy has all these traits that he's developed. He has this incredible army. He has the name Aegon. He looks like a Targaryen king. And on top of that, he probably is going to have the sword Blackfyre as well, the sword of kings. So he has the name of the first Targaryen king, the sword of the first Targaryen king, and the sword that every Targaryen king has held. He has, just all this stuff added up. I think it's not crazy to say that he'll succeed and that he'll become king, because during this time in the world of Westeros, during this time in the world of Planetos and the continent of Westeros is more divided than ever. This is prime perfect time for a foreign invader, because at this point, all the kingdoms are more divided than they have ever been since probably before the time of Aegon arriving in Westeros. And because at this point, I'm pretty sure the Riverlands and I'm pretty sure the Riverlands are still in open rebellion, and I'm pretty sure I'm not sure. The Stormlands, I think, are kind of falling. I know there's a Dornish conspiracy against the throne. The Riverlands are still in open rebellion. The Iron Islands are still in open rebellion. The Crownlands area is just kind of falling apart. The capital, King's Landing, is falling apart because of the Faith Militant taking over. You just have a lot of factors that is really just dividing the continent. And then in comes this foreign invader who has this pretty much awesome army behind him, and already has probably support in Westeros, probably mainly in Dorne, and he also is the striking image of what a king should be in their eyes. So it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean, I think that's if I had two major predictions, I would say those are the two major things that will happen in the next book. That would for sure be that. But yeah, let's take a quick break. Let me play some ads for you, and then I'll play a little bit of music, and just give me a few minutes to have a little bit of a caffeine break, and I'll talk to you in a minute.
88.1 The Berg would like to thank our proud sponsor, Happy's Market.
Happy's Market is a convenience store located at 207 West University Way in downtown Ellensburg.
They are now open 24 hours a day.
Happy's offers a variety of food options, such as their breakfast burritos, pizza, and Chester's chicken.
If you'd like to find out more, Happy's can be reached at 509-925-3500. The Berg wants to thank our proud sponsor, The Barber Chop.
The Barber Chop is located south of Safeway at 320 East 4th Avenue in Ellensburg.
They have experienced barbers and offer kids and men's haircuts.
To find out more or book appointments, you can visit ellensburgbarbershop.com.
Walk-ins welcome and appointments are guaranteed.
The Barber Chop!
Attorneys can help with many things: traffic citations, criminal accusations, and arrests. 88.1 The Berg would like to thank its proud sponsor, attorney Mark Shimoleski. Mark's office is located on Pine Street in downtown Ellensburg, walking distance from the CW campus and the courthouse. With over 30 years experience as a state deputy prosecuting attorney, municipal court judge, city prosecuting attorney, judge pro tem, and defense attorney, Mark can be reached at mac1law.com or by calling 933-1LAW.
All right. That was, of course, Killer Gnome from his classic EP, The Garden Asylum, with that great track being the title track, Garden Asylum. Check him out, man. He's on Spotify, where you can listen to both of his albums, not EPs. I don't know why I said EP, but you can check out his albums on Spotify, Killer Gnome. He was the first guest that I got to actually interview for this show. Really, really cool stuff. Yeah, every time I listen to that, man, it just makes me want to like work on one of my screenplays just even more. It's just perfect like screenplay music. I love it, man. I've always wanted to write like a gnome horror movie. You know, these days I have felt myself more drawn to just writing stuff that's just more over the top, and I guess, for lack of a better term, like campy. Because I really love stuff like Killer Klowns from Outer Space, Toxic Avenger, and I love like 90s spooky horror like Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark and like Creepshow and stuff like that. And I want to write more stuff like that, and listening to that kind of music makes me just want to get back into that again. But I already got screenplays that I kind of finished already. I can't switch again. I can't switch. I got to finish what I'm working on right now first. Maybe if I just take a break here and there, I'll work on them, you know. But I did, while I was listening to that, I wrote down Gnome movie in my notes just to remember, hey, like, add this to your list of screenplays you want to write one day. Gnome movie. So thank you, Killer Gnome. You've inspired me to remember that I've always wanted to write, like, a gnome horror movie. I remember, like, in one of the novels I'm working on, because I'm working on, like, 1,000 different writing projects, there's, like, secret gnomes in it that, like, come to life. To kind of aid the good guys in the last minute, or like in the final fight. And I don't know, I guess ever since I saw the episode of Goosebumps where like the gnomes are evil, like the evil gnomes, ever since I saw that, it just made me think, man, like something about like gnomes being evil is so interesting to me. And I'm talking like garden gnomes, like the very typical like red hats and the beards and everything. Something about them just being evil is really cool to me. I don't know why, but anyways, let's keep talking, man. This episode, by the way, is probably going to go on a lot longer than normal, just because I want to, you know, if I don't fall asleep at the microphone, hopefully I can do this for like hopefully until like 11. That'd be cool. Maybe even a little longer. You never know. But we'll see. I don't know why I've just been tired like the whole day. I'm considering like just straight up like door dashing like Starbucks to be brought to the station if I start falling asleep, because I want to stay up, man. I don't want to be a victim to my tiredness. Like I want to keep doing this, man. But anyways, let's keep going while I got the energy. One more thing I wanted to talk about in the Game of Thrones universe. You know, there has been some like Lego kind of stuff for Game of Thrones, like Mega Bloks has done a run of Game of Thrones kind of Lego sets, and I know people crap all over Mega Bloks, but you know what? I actually like Mega Bloks. I was one of the few kids that had Mega Bloks. I, for the most part, had Legos, but I would get the Halo Mega Bloks sets, and I'm just going to be honest with you, those were awesome, dude. Those were freaking awesome, man. Anybody who thinks like Mega Bloks like sucks, man, check out the Halo line of Mega Bloks. Like they were actually pretty cool, man. And you know, honestly, man, at the end of the day, if you think Halo Mega Bloks sucks, I just would describe you with one word: red. Because that's rude, really rude. Really dumb, really dumb. But with Game of Thrones, I know they did a few little sets with that, but I would love to see like a full-on Lego Game of Thrones run. I know that would be difficult for them to do because I think Lego tries to, at least for the most part, appeal to families, at least, like for the most part. I don't think they've done any like really like kind of like rated R kind of Lego sets before, because Game of Thrones is like straight up rated R. Like if they were movies, they'd be rated R. But I mean, if they did do it though, like I was thinking about how it'd be cool if they had like a throne room set. I mean, I feel like that would just be the obvious thing to do, but I think that's obvious for a reason, and that's because arguably, I mean, I'm not a fantasy expert, but I feel like the Game of Thrones throne room and the throne itself, the Iron Throne, is probably the coolest throne room in like all of fantasy cinema, at least, or rather also fantasy books maybe too. I mean, maybe that's too much for me to claim, but like honestly, a giant, huge throne made of swords that were forged together with like dragon fire. And in the book version of it, it's like this 20-foot tall, just like ugly, massive, like pointed swords, like and they're made, and the swords being used are the swords of the defeated enemies of the king who sits on that throne. Like, that's such a cool idea. Like, that's so cool. And it sits in the middle of this throne room that's basically the size of, like, is it St. Paul's Cathedral? It's the Vatican Cathedral. Like, it's basically the size of that. And it's this enormous, like, mangled, ugly throne made of the swords of fallen enemies. Like, that is so cool. Like, so cool, man. Like, I see that all the time, and I just, like, think it is...
This is freaking awesome!
Like, I'm just gonna be honest, man. The Game of Thrones throne, the Iron Throne, is...
hands down...
the coolest throne of all time. Let's just be honest, you guys. Let's just be honest. But, I think it'd be cool to see, like, a Lego of Thrones, Game of... No. But, I'd also, of course, love to see, probably the wall, like Castle Black specifically, like not the entire wall, obviously, but probably a Castle Black Lego set would be really cool. And you could probably have it like during like the Battle of Castle Black. I think that'd be really cool. And I'd love to also see probably just like some sets where you have some of the dragons. Like if we could have the 3 dragons of Daenerys, I mean, that's probably what they would do first. But I would love to see like a 3, like you get 3 individual, like you can get all 3 of the sets. I'd love to see dragons for Caraxes and probably Vhagar, of course, and I really like Melees, so that'd be cool to have that one too. But those would be really, really sick. And of course, because I'm a huge fan of the Blackfires, not only would I love to have just like Game of Thrones / Westeros, like just battle packs where you have like, where you can get like 5 or like 3, would it be 3? You can get like a few figures with like a catapult or something with it. Not only would I like to just see that in general for just armies of Westeros, but I would love to see it where you have multiple kind of battle packs, each one having like a different banner / like, kingdom faction they're fighting for. And of course I would want one of those to be the Blackfires. Like, why not, dude? I think it'd be cool if we had just like a Targaryen battle pack, a Blackfire battle pack, and maybe like a Stark and then Lannister one or something like that. I think that would be, if we got those 4, that would be pretty cool, dude. I'm just going to be honest. That'd be pretty freaking cool. Anything that's like Blackfire oriented and Lego, I just have one thing to say about it.
Give me it.
I want it, dude. I want it, man. I want it so bad. But yeah, why don't we jump into the next segment? Probably won't be as rambly just because, you know me with Game of Thrones, I could ramble about it for hours. And I know that for a fact because we're an hour and a half in almost. And I've only just finished the Game of Thrones segment. So, yeah. But yeah, let's get into the Lord of the Rings segment, everybody. Cue us in, Gandalf. Oh, yeah. F yeah. Thank you, Gandalf. But yeah, with Lord of the Rings, I mean, if we want to talk about some of my favorite stuff with that too, the thing that's always made me love the Lord of the Rings universe is I think just the deep level of craftsmanship that's gone into that, and I just have such a respect for that. It's not my favorite fantasy universe, but the really cool thing about it is that just so much work like went into creating it. Like Tolkien pretty much started, I don't know when he was born, but we know that he served during the First World War. And during the First World War, that's when his like idea to like create, I don't know if like it was, I mean, I'm not a Tolkien expert, but we know that he first started working on like, at least like the germ of what would be an idea for Middle Earth during World War I. Like he would literally be in the trenches writing in his little notebook about this fictional world that he started. I think the first thing was called like the Book of Lost Tales or something like that. And I think he had the idea of creating a mythology for Britain, but from my understanding, I'm pretty sure this isn't like the complete correct truth, but based on what I know, I'm pretty sure like it started off as him being like, I want to create these tales for Britain, and then those tales kind of just snowballed into him creating like an like him creating this like fully secondary world, because he was also a linguist. Like Tolkien was a linguistics nerd, and he was also a professor of linguistics. And I think kind of the combination of him wanting to create a mythology for England, because England doesn't really have that much of a mythology. They have kind of folk tales of like the Knights of the Round Table and stuff like that, but not really a whole ton of stuff outside of that. So he wanted to create like a mythology for England, and I think that combined with him wanting to like create his own languages made him go like, well, why? Over time, it went from him being like, I'll create these, mythology tales for England, and it went from that to him being like, I'm going to create this fully secondary world where my languages are spoken, and the language that he worked on the most, like to the point where pretty much every other language I think was based on it, was Elvish. And I think that's really cool. And I just love that it has such a deep level of craftsmanship there. And there's other fictional universes that have tons of work and honing put into them, like the Game of Thrones universe being one of them. Because George Martin has like been working on that universe and like sculpting it and like working on it and everything for decades. But Tolkien worked on it his whole life pretty much. I don't know how old he was at the time of the First World War, but I know he died in 1973, I think, or 74. And I think he was in his 80s or 90s, maybe. I'm gonna say his 80s. I think he was in his 80s when he died. But he'd been working on Middle Earth for at least half a century. Let's say that. Like he'd been pretty much like consistently working on building the world of Middle Earth for like 50 years probably. And that combined with him being just a linguist, like, and him putting so much depth and detail into the deep history and everything of this world, makes me just like be like, okay, even if I just straight up didn't like this kind of world, I still would at least respect it. You still have to at least respect that and be like, you know what, man, the lowest opinion I feel like you can have with Tolkien that I think is understandable is basically just be like, okay, I personally don't really like this world, but I will at least give you the respect of putting this much work and craftsmanship into this world. Because pretty much I would say not a whole lot of other, I would say very few, and I would maybe even argue that no other fantasy world or our secondary world really comes close, because not only did he just purely put, it's not like he just put so much work just building the history itself. Like he was working it and reworking it and like fine tuning it and stuff like that throughout his life. And also it's worth noting that this guy wasn't just doing that. He also essentially created like modern fantasy through it. Like I would say the bulk of what modern fantasy is inspired directly by Tolkien. Like our version, like what we think of as a fantasy elf, what we think of as like an orc and a goblin, and what we think of as a dwarf, like just at least those archetypes of, the dwarves, the elves, the orcs / goblins, and at least those three archetypes, like we are heavily influenced by Tolkien's version of those. And on top of that, also just the fact that so many fantasy books and even science fiction books as well and all that stuff, it's now just like an expectation for, if you write a fantasy book, it's honestly just kind of an expectation of you just by default to build lore with it, to have like, some lore history, at least in the back of the book for fans to read about, and a map and everything. Tolkien pretty much, like, I don't want to say he was the first to do it because I just don't know that for sure, but he was at least the guy who really got it right the first time at least. I know that there were similar novels at the time where people would have like these in-depth kind of stuff of, I would just say it's not as in-depth as his world. But he at least deserves that respect. And that's what I really love about it. That's why I've always kind of kept going back to it. And, when you look at, I've only read the first book, but I like The Fellowship of the Ring, but I really, really liked it. I want to finish the other two. That's definitely on my bucket list, is to finish the other two, for sure. On my reading list / bucket list, is to finish the other two. And I really like that it's like kind of, I like that it's different from the books, but what I really like about the difference between the books and the movies is they are really different in terms of vibe, I would say. But you can tell that, I would say that you can tell with the movies that they really captured the kind of spirit and essence of Tolkien and really understood, like, this isn't just like a made-up fantasy world. This is like a fully in-depth secondary world with deep history and culture and everything in it. Like, we're not going to just make like this goofy, colorful, whatever kind of fantasy movie. We recognize that this is another world with its own deep history and everything to it. And them just taking that approach, I think, shows a deep respect for Tolkien, which I really, really like. And I personally really like the movies a lot, like probably a little bit more. But then again, I've only read one book, so what do I know? But I really like how the book is kind of more cozy and comfy. It kind of feels like more cozy fantasy. I really like. And I really like that it's honestly more, and I don't mean this with like a negative connotation. I just mean that I just really like that it's kind of a more cartoony book in a way, but it has like the bits of history of Middle Earth put in there, which I just really like. I think that's really, really cool. But my favorite of the movies, I just love the first one. When I was a kid, I loved the second one the most, mainly just because I loved the Battle of Helm's Deep so much. Like I've talked about this before on the show. I was straight up obsessed with the Battle of Helm's Deep when I was a kid. Like I drew it hundreds of times. I played it over and over again on the Battle for Middle-earth video game once I got that, and I would build it like out of Lego a lot of the time. Like I just was utterly obsessed with that battle. Like it was so cool to me. And I loved it so much. But my favorite character though, first of all, I loved the first movie, though. I should probably mention, I loved the first movie now the most, mainly just because I love that it just has a mixture of so much in it. The first movie I feel like has bits of like horror and has a lot of like, has some comedy in it with the hobbits. I love the Mines of Moria part. That's probably my favorite part of the whole series is when they're in the Mines of Moria. I love it. And I love when they're in Rivendell. I love the Lothlorien elves so much. I love how like ethereal they are. I think it's so cool. I love the atmosphere of that. And I really just like Strider Aragorn a lot. And I feel like we really see the most of that in Fellowship of the Ring. And then in the second film, he kind of is transitioning into a more kingly character. And then the third film, he like fully is like, I am the king kind of deal. And I think King Aragorn's great, but I honestly kind of prefer Strider Aragorn, to be honest. I also love the Weathertop fight, and I love the scene of them at the Prancing Pony, and he's just back there smoking his pipe, and I love all of them, and it's so cool. It's so cool. And I also love the Galadriel prologue at the beginning of it, and we see the War of the Last Alliance, which is so cool to me. It's all just great, you know, and I think probably my favorite battle of the whole series now, if you want to count it as a battle, is the Battle of Emon Hen, when the Fellowship fights against like 200 Uruk-hai that come and fight. Maybe that doesn't completely count as a battle because it's like 9 members of the Fellowship versus like 200 orcs. I don't know if that technically is a battle because it's not like 2 armies really, but it's like one group of orcs or Uruk-hai that you could say is basically an army, like technically an army. It's like 200 of them, like that's an army. And then the other side is just kind of 9 members of the Fellowship. But if you want to count that as a battle, that's my favorite battle. If not, I really like the Battle of the Pelennor Fields / Minas Tirith a lot these days. But Helm's Deep is really cool for me too. I don't know, just, you know, over time interests change. You know, you evolve as a person, and these days I still really like Helm's Deep, but I think I just really like, if I have to choose like a full-on like huge battle, I'm going to go Minas Tirith. I just love how over the top and epic it is, and it's really, really cool. And it's weird. I feel like most people love Return of the King way more than The Fellowship or The Two Towers. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's really cool. But I feel like, I think like a more underlying reason that does sound more vague, but I think it's just more generally applied to everything in the movie. I feel like in the first movie, there's just so much more character kind of development I don't want to say character development, but like I don't know, like there's so much more. I feel like there's more of an emphasis on the movies as they go on the War of the Ring, which is obvious that there should be. But I like in the first movie, because it's like only the War of the Ring is like really just beginning. You get to spend just much more time with the characters. And I like that the Fellowship is all together in that movie. And I really like that, and I really think it's cool. I think it totally makes sense why the Fellowship gets split up. I think it totally like makes sense why it would happen. But at the same time, I don't know, I kind of wish the Fellowship was together a little bit longer. But, you know, at the same time, I think it was a better decision for Tolkien to be like, no, let's split these guys up, and then they'll reunite at the end. I feel like if they were just together for the entire, book, I feel like that'd be harder to pull off, and splitting them up like creates so much more dramatic opportunity. So I think that just makes total sense. But if I had to pick my favorite character though of it all, I would probably pick, I mean, I know it's kind of a very typical answer and very cliche, but I just love Aragorn. You know, you can't go wrong with him. I mean, I loved Legolas when I was a lot younger, and I still I really wanted to be an archer when I was a kid. Just something about having a bow and like having a bow and an arrow just seemed so cool to me. It's probably because I played a lot of Elder Scrolls growing up, and I would always pick the archer class. And but as I got older, I think as I kind of got in my later teen years, I switched to just doing like the classic sword and shield in the Elder Scrolls. But you know, whatever. These days, I probably would want to be more of a swordsman, but also a bow would be cool. I really want to try medieval Boohurt, if anybody knows what that is. If anybody who doesn't know what it is, it's basically like medieval MMA, where like guys get armored up in like full, accurate medieval armor and chainmail and everything, and they get swords or axes or hammers, and they make sure they're blunt so they can't actually like stab you, and they just go at each other and they fight, and the only rule is like whoever falls down first loses. And that's the rule. And I really want to do that because it looks really, really cool. And you can't bring a bow and arrow to that. You can't. So I would have to do a sword if I had to pick something else. I would probably do a sword, or I would do, you know, I could do like the Robert Baratheon thing and do just like a warhammer. I could do that. But I'm also like, I'm a short guy. I'm 5'5". Like, it'd be weird if I had this like warhammer that was like bigger than me, you know? But then again, because I'm short, maybe I should do a spear. I don't know if they allow spears. Regardless, I want to do sword. I want to do sword, and I also want to have like an all black armor kind of look. I want to have the same like armor as Mykar's armor from Dunk and Egg. I want to have that same armor with like a dragon like crest on the chest, and it's like this slick black armor with like kind of like these like, I mean, I would have to like dull them, but like these dull spikes all over it, and then I would probably get a different looking helmet. But that's the armor I want. I want something like that. But anyways, what was I gonna say? But yeah, I loved Legolas when I was younger, and I loved just kind of the archer class. But I also just love Aragorn because he's such a good like fantasy role model. I think a lot of people say that he's like the epitome of like healthy masculinity, and I think that's really cool about him. He's definitely like, if I ever have kids, I'm definitely gonna be like, I want to show you guys these movies, not just because they're really cool movies, but also because like this guy is like, I hope you're inspired by this guy to be like a really, you know, he's just a good guy. Like, he's cool, but he's also a good guy. He's definitely just a solid good guy kind of character. I'm not saying it's completely realistic, but he's definitely kind of a good role model in the same way that like Spider-Man and Batman would be, where you can't fully emulate them, but they're kind of just a good North Star to have. But anyways, but yeah, I mean, my favorite media though from that franchise, you know, I love the Battle for Middle-earth 1 and 2 video games. Those I think were underrated. Like those strategy games of Middle-earth, I think are really cool. I still need to play like the actual like official movie video games from the PlayStation 2 era, because I've heard a lot of people say that they're actually like legitimately really cool, like really good games, and I really want to play them for that reason. I don't have a gaming console. Like, I need to get one of those, man. Like, my PS4 just like died on me, like I think like a year ago. I think I attempted to like play a game on it, and it already for like a few years was like just for a few years I just used it as a TV. Like, the gaming kind of aspects of it were just done. I've had that one. I got it when I was probably like, I'm going to say like 13 was when I first got it, and I'm almost 25. So I think it's fair to say that one is just dead. But I want to get a PS5, and if I can somehow get like the kind of earlier Lord of the Rings games on it, I would love to play them on there. Because I know there's certain like games you can get downloaded on there that are earlier games. But anyways, that'd be really, really cool. But my favorite stuff is for sure, I have never honestly played a lot of the Lord of the Rings video games. I just kind of have played just the Battle for Middle-earth games. And I mean, I've played like the modded like Third Age Total War game, which is pretty fun. But I at least want to play the official Lord of the Rings like games. And I know there's like tons of other ones out there, but I'd love to check it out. I did also play the Hobbit video game when I was a kid, and this was like the one that was out before the movie. So this is like the game that's like based on the book. And I played a little bit of that, and I thought it was really good. But also keep in mind, this is like the era in internet history where like you didn't have the option of like if you were stuck on a game, you could just like Google like the YouTube video of the level and you can just see how somebody else beat it and you can just get past that. This was during the time when, I guess I'm dating myself a little bit here. This was during the time when you didn't have that option. So if you came at a stopping point in the game where you just couldn't figure something out, that was the end of the game. And that's why I didn't get super far in that game, is because I just like, I couldn't figure out this one part of it. But still pretty cool. It was a fun time. And honestly, I kind of wish we could get more video games that are just based on books and not just movies. And that's one example. And you also have the Witcher games that were predominantly based on the Witcher books. So it'd be cool to see more of those. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. But yeah, I mean, when we talk about like the Lego Lord of the Rings kind of stuff going on, I mean, obviously it's on like a huge like kick right now. Like it's uber popular. I remember the first one they introduced was Rivendell, and that was back in 2023, I'm going to say, was when they first announced that. Wow, that was a while ago. That was close. That was 3 years ago. Ugh, it was a while, man. It doesn't feel like it. It feels like it was only like a few months ago, maybe. But anyways, they had the Rivendell set come out then, and then shortly after that it was Barad-dûr. And then they also had, I think, like a Bag End set, and I think, wasn't there a third one that I'm forgetting? I mean, I know there's the new Minas Tirith one, but like, I feel like there's another big one that came out that I'm forgetting. Is it? Well, still, like, they have the new Minas Tirith one coming out, and that, like, just came out. I think it's, like, I don't even know if it's, like, fully available yet. I mean, maybe it's, like, pre-order kind of level, but I don't know if you can fully get it. I'm actually curious. I'm going to look it up. Like, can you get the Minas Tirith? Come on, iPad. There we go. Minas Tirith Lego set. I know it's a ton of money for it. Oh yeah, you can buy it. Oh yeah, you can get it on eBay. There's people already reselling it. Yeah, someone's selling it on eBay for like $500. Another guy's selling it for $400. You can get it for $350 on Whatnot. I'm just advertising it at this point. Dude, people are already selling just the minifigures, dude. Someone's selling Pippin for $35. That's actually not terrible. That's not terrible. Whoa, did somebody do like a custom? Oh no, these are like mini Lego sets. I was gonna say, did somebody like make a custom Minas Morgul? Or honestly, I'm looking at one that's like it's a mini Lego set, so it's not like minifigure scale. It's a miniature set, and it looks like they did the Minas Ithil on one side, and if you flip it over, it can be Minas Morgul. That's such a cool idea, man. That's such a cool idea to get two in one. You can just flip it. That's such a cool idea. I love that. Lego, if you do Minas Morgul / Minas Ithil in the future, just look it up and you'll find a miniature set and take the same idea as that person who made just one side of it, the corrupted version when it's Minas Morgul, and then make it so that you could flip it around and it could be Minas Ithil when it's the proud Gondorian like beacon light city. Pretty cool. But as far as the future of Lego with Lego Lord of the Rings, I mean, I know we've had like a few battle packs and stuff released outside of the big sets, but I really love the idea of them just sticking to like the big, huge collector sets. I think it's really cool, and it's pretty complimentary of like what Lord of the Rings is. Like, because Lord of the Rings is like super beloved, but I think it's also seen as like this almost like the kind of standard, it's like just the thing with it's kind of held to just such a high standard that I feel like in response making these super well crafted collector sets instead of kind of the more standard run of Legos where it's kind of more condensed. And I mean, they've condensed, like, of course they can't fully do Rivendell, they can't fully do Barad-dûr, they can't fully do Minas Tirith, but you know, like they're collector's level sets. Like they're not like ones you can just buy for like $100. Like they're like at least 500 plus each for like the brand new one. But at the same time, I think I would like to see them just stick with the collector sets and maybe just release some like battle packs here and there so you can add minifigures to them, which is what they would kind of normally do with other ones in the past if they took the standard Lego route. But I like the idea of like maybe once a year they release a new like big like collector set, and then shortly afterwards they can just release like battle packs to go with it. And for the Minas Tirith set, maybe they could just do like in terms of battle packs, I mean, there's a lot going on in the Battle of Minas Tirith, but they could do battle packs where they have like, they could do battle packs where they have like a few orc soldiers and then like some maybe, you know what, actually a few orc soldiers with like a few Rohan soldiers and maybe like 1 or 2 Gondorian soldiers. And then with it, you could probably just like throw in like a Mumakil elephant in there. Honestly, maybe instead, because that is a lot to ask of like a battle pack, maybe instead you could just release like a set that would maybe be like $60 or $100 or something, where it's like a mini Battle of Pelennor field set where you have like a few, where you have like a Momakil, like Oliphant, like giant elephant with the Herodrium, and then with it you have the you have a few Rohan cavalry, and then maybe if you want to, you can put like 1 or 2 Gondorian soldiers in the background or something maybe. And if you just like, and if fans, like dedicated fans, like bought a bunch of those, you could have like a huge like, you know, Battle of the Pelennor fields going on. But you know, that's just an idea. But it's also kind of hard because how are you going to include the Battle of the, like, how are you going to include the Oathbreaker ghosts coming in too? It's a lot going on, man. Because in the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, like you have, how many different armies are there? I think it's you have 4 different armies there. You have the Oathbreakers coming in at the last minute to save the day. You have the Gondorians defending Minas Tirith. You have, of course, the Rohan army, the Rohirrim showing up. And then you have, of course, the army of Mordor, led by the Witch King, which comes straight from, I'm pretty sure in the movies it's depicted as it pretty much straight up just coming from Minas Morgul. That's at least where they leave Mordor from. But it would be pretty interesting to just see if they could somehow do that. But it would probably be a lot easier if they did, like, if the next major set they did was Helm's Deep, and they just did honestly the same thing as the first run of Lord of the Rings sets from like 15 years ago that were basically where they had the Helm's Deep set, and then the battle packs were predominantly focused on just adding more to that set. They could do the same thing now and make it so that you could just build, like, you could make the Deeping Wall just bigger and bigger, and then you could add more and more figures to it, and soon enough, if you're willing to spend like an extra few $100, like, you could essentially build like a really big version of, you could get I wouldn't say like a really close version, but you could get to the point where you have a decent version of the Battle of Helm's Deep going on. But then again, I don't know, to be honest, like I've said this in the past, I would like to see them do Helm's Deep, but I think more so I would really like to see them do something with Moria, or do something with honestly, I would love, I know this is from the Hobbit movies, and I think they're trying to prioritize just the Lord of the Rings movies, but I will say, I would love, like absolutely love, to see them do a Dwarven fortress, specifically Erebor. I would love to see them do Erebor, because I know the Hobbit movies are a little over the top, like too over the top here and there, but Erebor is like the greatest kingdom of dwarves at the time of the Lord of the Rings, and before the Hobbit, it's even more grand. And well, before the Smaug overtakes it, it's like the greatest dwarven kingdom of them all. And I think it's pretty safe to say that once they take it back, it becomes the greatest once again. But I would love to see a set similar to Minas Tirith, where you have the front of it looking like kind of a mini scale to kind of compensate for it being enormous, but not trying to, like, you know, build it to minifigure size, because you can't. But then you could have it be when you open it up, like maybe you could open the front of it, and then you could have it being like just like this big inside set of it. Maybe you could do that. Maybe, I don't really know. You could do a similar thing to the Minas Tirith set, where when you spin it around, the back of it is the Hall of Kings, and it's kind of enclosed inside the mountain. And you could do the same thing with Erebor, where you could have like this really big, like multi-level set of like different rooms of Erebor, and you could have it just kind of have doors to Erebor being kind of small scale, be the front of it, and then you open them up, and that's the inside of Erebor. I think that'd be really cool, but that's just me. I think it's a cool idea, I'm not gonna lie. Dude, I'm so good at coming up with Lego ideas, man. You gotta give me a shout out, Lego. You gotta give me a shout out. Or I'll give you a shout. I don't know. But I'm just saying, I'm excited by it. Makes me want to go, woo! If that were to happen, man. If that were to happen. Anyway, though, what was I gonna say? Anyways, but with Lord of the Rings, like with the future Lego stuff, I would love to just see more of that. And when it comes to like just Lord of the Rings media, like future media, I would love to see. I mean, I know we're getting more movies and stuff, but it's a little iffy. I honestly think if there's one area of the Lord of the Rings universe that you can eternally capitalize on, and fans will always just like eat it up, like no matter what's happening, I feel like just going in the route of video games would be really cool. Like, I would love to see just more video games created for Lord of the Rings. Like, honestly, maybe if you did kind of a more modern version of the Lord of the Rings, like, official games. Like, I'm not saying a reboot or, like, a remake. I'm just saying maybe doing just a more modern version of that would be pretty cool. Pretty cool. And honestly, maybe you could go even further, because I actually like the Hobbit movies. I'm one of the few people that really likes them. I saw them in the theaters. I saw the first one in the theater. I saw all three of them in the theater, I think. Yeah, because I saw the first one in theater with my dad. I saw the second one with some friends. And the third one, I'm trying to remember. Did I see that in the theater or not? I'm trying to remember. I don't think so. I think I did. Yeah. I saw the first one with my dad. I saw the second one with friends, and then I saw the third one with my dad, I believe. And I had a great time watching all three of them, man. And I still rewatch them. I remember there's a friend of mine who surprisingly actually likes the Hobbit movies more than Lord of the Rings, and that is like almost sacrilegious, man. Like my reaction to that was like, yeah, I mean, I think they're pretty cool, so like, why not? Like, enjoy what you like, man. But I know that a lot of people would probably hear that and just would think one word of them, and that is idiot. But honestly, dude, I think they're really cool, and I'm actually so excited to have Thranduil return, to have Lee Pace return as Thranduil in the Hunt for Gollum movie. I think that's so cool. That makes me so excited. And honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to like having Tauriel come back, Evangeline Lilly, maybe even Orlando Bloom. Maybe. Might as well have fun with it, man. But I think in the realm of video games, that's where you can do a lot of stuff with Lord of the Rings. I feel like you could really, I don't know, I think it'd be cool to just see more of that stuff. But let's take another break, and I'll play some more Killer Gnome for you and just a couple ads. Yeah, you'll hear we'll hear a few ads, and then we'll play some more Killer Gnome, and then we'll get into the kind of horror movie ramble stuff. Yeah, talk to you in a minute.
Coming up next, here on 88.1 The Berg, your music central.
88.1 The Berg would like to thank our proud sponsor, Ellensburg Central Transit.
Operating 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., Ellensburg Central Transit is Ellensburg's public transit service.
Stops include Fred Meyer, Safeway, The Verge, and Brooklane Village.
All buses have bike racks and are ADA accessible.
For bus routes, stops, and pickup times, the transit app is available for download.
More information can be found on their website at centraltransit.org.
Support for 88.1 The Berg comes from Ellensburg Planned Parenthood, located at 613 North Pine Street.
They offer services such as STI testing, birth control, wellness exams, and more.
For more information or to book an appointment, you can call them at 866-904-7721 or visit their website at ppgwni.org.
Oh, right. That was, of course, Killer Gnome with his EP or album. Why do I keep saying EP? Of course, it's his album, The Garden Asylum. And those were the two tracks, of course, being I See a Red Pointy Thing in the Bushes. I really like that title. And an even better title, in my opinion, one called Shut Up Elf. That was the last track playing. Pretty cool stuff, man. You gotta love it. Yeah, God, man, I love just the ambience and just vibe of that album. It's really, really cool. But yeah, let's get into the next little segment here. Let's get into some horror stuff. Let's cue us in with that classic werewolf. Where is it? Not that one. Where are you? There you are. Ow! Oh yeah, the werewolf stuff. You know what, man? Whenever I'm watching a horror movie, I just have 3 words on my mind, and it's, I am so scared. I gotta love it, man. But yeah, that was Michael Scott from The Office, from the Scranton Witch Project. And you know what? I'm a huge fan of that show, and if there's one part of it, like, I could choose to, like, expand on. Like, I wish we could see more of that. It's the orientation video being called the Scranton Witch Project during Jim's orientation. I want to see the full video of the Scranton Witch Project. Like, that's so, and it's so funny to me. Like, just the image of Michael under his desk, just reenacting the final scene from the Blair Witch Project, and it's about like people not labeling their food, like in the in the break room. It's so dumb, dude. But anyways, with the horror stuff going on, you know what? Recently, I watched the movie Longlegs with Nick Cage that came out a few years ago, and I thought it was really cool. I thought his performance was really interesting, and I don't know, it didn't really feel like I was watching Nick Cage. It kind of felt like I was watching like just this character come to life, and I think the combination of his, in my opinion, really cool performance, along with just the heavy, creepy makeup he was in, all added up to it really working with this horror movie. And honestly, I was like legit, like kind of creeped out by it. Like, I'm not gonna lie, while I was watching it, like I definitely was thinking to myself, I am so scared. Well, I mean, maybe not the whole time, but I mean, I was definitely watching it, was definitely a little creeped out by it. But at the same time, I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would, I actually haven't given a movie rating out of 10 in a long time, and I'll definitely do it for this right now. For this movie, I mean, I really liked the story. I loved the main actor, and I loved Nick Cage in the movie. I thought it was like legit really creepy. I liked the premise of it being like this cursed doll thing happening, and I liked the twist with the mom. Like, all of that added up. It wasn't a perfect movie, but I will say that I will say that it was pretty cool, though. I mean, I thought it was pretty cool. Like, to quote Tommy Wiseau, of course, he thought it was pretty good. I thought it was pretty good. I'm going to give it, like, I always go back to the movie Castle Freak as, like, kind of my reference, because I gave that movie, like, an 8.5 out of 10, I think. Did I like Castle Freak more? Probably. I think I liked this one slightly more, maybe. I don't know. I think I liked Castle Freak a little bit more. I'm going to give Longlegs, starring Nicolas Cage, I'm going to give it a 7.9 out of 10. Like, honestly, if I feel like I think it was really well done. I wasn't in love with it, but I thought it was really well done. I really liked it. Longlegs is really cool. Check it out, man. It's on Hulu. That's where I watched it. And also just Nick Cage is just such a cool actor, man. I'm one of the few people that is like a huge fan of Nick Cage, and I love everything that he's in. I remember a friend of mine and I, we watched like a bunch of Nick Cage movies back in the day. Like, I remember, because I used to work at Walmart on and off, and I did for a few years. It was always just the place I would go if I just needed like a really easy job where I could just kind of stand around and kind of just do nothing and just kind of hang out with my coworkers and honestly get overpaid. I would just go to Walmart. I would go to Walmart, and like once every year I would probably work there for like a season or something. And while I was there, me and my coworker and I, on our lunch break, we would go watch like an hour of a movie. And for a few weeks, we just watched like Nicolas Cage movies. And one of the movies we watched was Season of the Witch. And that one we really liked. I thought that one was really cool. And I remember we didn't watch this one, but I also watched the movie years ago. I think this was like prior to me starting college. So I think this was like 2020 when I watched this. So it was a long time ago. I watched the movie Mandy with Nick Cage, and that to me is like his most underrated movie. Like, you got to check out Mandy, dude. That movie is so cool. It's like this weird horror movie acid trip, and it has like a movie that's like a horror movie acid trip starring like Nicolas Cage, and on top of that, there's like bikers from hell. There's a chainsaw duel that happens in it between Nick Cage and another guy, and the main villain is like this Charles Manson cult figure guy. All that added up made me go, dude, like this movie is amazing. I love that movie. Do I like it more than Longlegs? Kind of, yeah. I would give Mandy, like, honestly, I liked Mandy more than Castle Freak. I'm going to give Mandy an 8.6 out of 10. Maybe a little bit more. I'm going to go 8.7 out of 10 for Mandy, and then Castle Freak like an 8.5. But yeah, you got to check those out, dude. You got to check out Mandy, and you got to check out Longlegs, and also just a really solid, just really good movie that has Nick Cage in it, but it's just a great movie just overall, is Lord of War. Check that movie out. That movie just has a really good story. I really like it. But yeah, I thought Longlegs was cool. I liked it. 7 point, so what did I say? Like 7.8 out of 10, something like that. No, 7.9 out of 10. 7.9. But also with horror stuff that I've been consuming lately, I've been also consuming Killer Klowns from Outer Space for like the 1000th time. Oh yeah. That's the iconic laugh from Killer Klowns from Outer Space. One of the iconic laughs. That's one of my favorite aspects of those clowns. Like they really, like they look like they're still campy and over the top, but I like that they have like these weird, distinct, like alien features. I really like that. I think it's cool they have like the weird, like droopy, like gross, wrinkled, like white skin, like pure, like milk white skin. And they have like the weird, just like bloated, gross features. And they have like those weird, like multi-layered laughs. And I think it's cool. I really like it. Killer Klowns from Outer Space, like I'm not going to lie, that's in like my top 10 like favorite movies of all time. I'm totally serious. Like if I had to say like my absolute top 10 movies, like just of all time, my top 10 movies of like all time, ballparking it, I'm going to say, and in no particular order, I'm going to say Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. That's definitely up there. Qui-Gon, the Japanese anthology movie from the 60s. That movie is just so cool. Like I just really like it. Killer Klowns from Outer Space, amazing campy over the top movie. What else? Like there's definitely, those are like, I mean those are in the top 10 as I mean obviously. But what are the other ones? I mean I know there's more than that. RoboCop, I love RoboCop. I think that's such a cool movie. Predator 2, I really like. I think that movie's really cool, really fun. The Shining, what am I talking about? The Shining is like in my top 3 probably, or at least top 5. There you go. I'll play it safe and say top 5. The Shining, amazing. What else? I got 4 more I got to come up with. I got 4 more. I'm trying to think of movies that I've just been consistently just like obsessed with over the years, or just the movies I was obsessed with for a period of time. I really liked Hellraiser 2 probably when that came out. Or not when it came out, but when I watched it. When it came out, I was probably like -20 or something when it came out. But Hellraiser 2 is really cool. I really like Batman Forever. I think that's a really fun movie. I'm just kind of ballparking it here. I'm probably a few of these I would switch out for other movies that I'm just forgetting about right now. Highlander, you got to put Highlander in there, dude. I love Highlander. That's like one of my top movies for sure. Definitely Highlander, and I'm trying to remember like the movie posters I have on my wall. And then probably maybe this is kind of I was gonna say Revenge of the Sith, but I'm not really sure if I would put that movie in there. I love Revenge of the Sith and I love Star Wars, don't get me wrong. I love Star Wars for like a similar reason to Game of Thrones, where like Game of Thrones got me into well, not really. I love Game of Thrones purely for the story, not just the world. It's more so for the story. But I love Star Wars more for the world of just the world of Star Wars. I love the story of it. Like, don't get me wrong. Like the 6 movies, along with a few of the TV shows and stuff, are amazing. But I more so just love the world of Star Wars. I'm trying to think. I have like one more movie I got to put in there. I'm trying to think. I know there's like it's definitely out there. Like there's definitely another movie out there that I'm forgetting that I know for a fact when I do remember it, I'll be like, oh my God, why didn't I remember that? I'm trying to think. Probably, The Fly, probably with David Cronenberg. That movie's really cool. I'll put that in my top 10 for sure. The Fly with David, like the Cronenberg movie. Yeah, those are probably roughly my top 10 favorite movies, probably. It's kind of a weird list, but like I like it. But Killer Klowns from Outer Space is definitely in the top 10. Like I'm sure a few of the movies will get switched out for other ones once I probably if I think about it again, but Killer Klowns from Outer Space is like definitely in the top 10 for me. I just love how like over the top and campy and colorful it is. And was it scary to me as a kid? A little bit, definitely. I forget if his name like Fatso, I think. It's the giant. I have an action figure of him, but it's the big one. It's the big clown with the hammer. Or it's no, Jumbo. That's his name, Jumbo. I have an action figure of him. I saw it in like a Halloween store, and I was like, I'll take that, thank you. Because when I was younger, when I was like probably like 11 or 12, I really wanted like a Killer Klowns from Outer Space action figure. Once I saw that they were available, I wanted one so bad, and I never got one. But I got one now, so that's pretty cool. But that I just honestly, the Killer Klowns like from Outer Space franchise I really like, because we have the movie, obviously, but there's also that video game that came out a few years ago that I think some people liked. I didn't play it, but like I think some people liked it. But I know for like decades since the movie came out, people have been trying to get a sequel going, and I know they've had, I think, a few attempts, and each one it's just ended in failure, which is a bummer, dude. Definitely like among the movies that were going to happen but never did, that I'm the most disappointed by, like that's up there. It's like the one movie that like I really hope still happens. And I know that I think it's Ryan Gosling or Ryan Reynolds. I think it's Ryan Gosling. I'm not really sure, but we'll just use him for the sake of it. It's either one of those, but Ryan Gosling got the rights to Killer Klowns from Outer Space, and now he's trying to make a sequel, I think, through Amazon Prime. And I'm hoping to God we actually get that, because I would just be so happy to see that come to fruition, man. And I know that in the past, the original Kyoto brothers, is it Chiodo or Kyoto? We'll say Kyoto brothers, have wanted to do a sequel, particularly revolving around Shorty, the little clown with like green hair, and they wanted it to revolve around him on the planet of that they come from, of the Killer Klowns planet. And that would be pretty interesting. That'd be pretty interesting, because I feel like if you just do a sequel where the Killer Klowns just come back again and just try to invade Earth again, I feel like that's too obvious to do. I feel like reversing it and having the story take place on the home of the Killer Klowns would be really cool. And would they make it a horror movie? I mean, I feel like in the first place, the movie wasn't like, they weren't really trying to make it like a full-on scary horror movie. Like there's only one part of it that I think is actually like, that actually scared me a little bit when I was a kid. And that was when Jumbo actually is trying to coerce like the girl, like the little girl, to come out of the like fast food restaurant, and he's trying to like come off as like the happy goofy clown to her, and he's using that as a way to kind of convince her to come out of the McDonald's kind of place. But in reality, he has like his giant hammer hidden behind his back, and that's like the one part that's always been creepy to me. The rest of it, like, there's some parts that are a little creepy for sure, like the cotton candy kind of cocoons of the people being killed, and probably when the clowns like first, like when that first like shadow of Jumbo, coincidentally also Jumbo, is like behind the tent when he catches the dog. I think Pooh Bear is what his name is. And so there's a few parts that are kind of scary, but for the most part, it's like just like a campy, fun horror movie. And I bring that up just to say, like, or rather to ask, like, will they go in the direction of like a scarier movie? I don't know. I mean, I'm a huge fan of clown horror movies. Like, I love Stephen King's It. I wasn't like a super fan of the newer It movies. I think they're really cool. I just wasn't a super fan. I think it's just because I love the older one, just because I love that kind of 90s vibe to it. And I also just love the Tim Curry version of Pennywise. But at the same time, I will admit, as a whole, that movie is an amazing. The newer movies, I don't love Pennywise, and I just like the 90s vibe of the earlier one more. But I will say the newer ones I think have a better way of telling the story, but that's just me. And I do appreciate that they wanted to do like a different version of Pennywise that looked kind of more old-timey, kind of like very much from like the kind of old kind of antique circus days. So I think it's a cool approach. I just kind of prefer the very typical cliche approach that they did with the first one, where they just went for just a full-on, classic version of what we think of as a clown. But with Killer Klowns from Outer Space, like, I'm hoping that this sequel actually happens, and if it does, I would love to have it take place on their home world. Like, if there's any aspect of that movie that I was the most intrigued by, in the sense that I'd want to know more of, it's just about the clowns themselves, like the world they come from, and you know, the language that they have and stuff like that. You know what? It might be kind of cool if we got subtitles with their language. It might be kind of cool. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, we of course saw some original cast members come back and maybe they go to the planet of the clowns. That'd be kind of cool. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I'd love to interview some of the actors from that show, man, from that movie. I would love to interview at least one of them, man. That'd be such an honor to do that, man. It'd be such an honor. But I'm such a huge fan of that movie, man. I'd love to hear just the news being updated with it saying we're going to do the second movie. Like, it's officially going to happen. It's been greenlit. And I don't know. I'd love to see it happen. You know, I should look it up just to be sure. That, like, it's for sure gonna be likely to happen more so than before. What is it? I know it's Ryan Gosling from you know, movies like Drive and obviously La La Land and of course Blade Runner 2. But yeah, Ryan Gosling is producing a remake. Oh, it's a remake. It's not a sequel. Well, you know what? Honestly, I'm fine with that, to be honest. I'm one of the few people that actually likes remakes. I do agree that we shouldn't get remakes of like freaking everything. Like, I get it. If there's too many remakes, it does make me just get like a little crazy and just get overwhelmed. And yeah, I mean, there are some remakes that like I really did not like, and I just walked out of the theater just yelling, "No one likes you!" because I wasn't a fan. I wasn't a fan. You know, most people, when they talk about like the Chucky remake, everybody just looks at that movie and just goes, "No one likes you!" You know, because it wasn't well received. Even with Mark Hamill voicing Chucky, which is such a great idea, perfect casting, especially with him voicing the Joker, like for sure. But honestly, I'd be really interested to see a remake of this, because I will say, I've talked about this before on the show, some like just getting endless content and sequels and everything of just everything is sometimes it kind of dumbs things down. And honestly, I would like to see a sequel, but there was a part of me talking about it thinking to myself, well, I kind of don't want to see the planet and everything and then have it kind of ruined for me if it doesn't turn out super good. And yeah, like, I don't know, but honestly, I like that we're going to probably get a Killer Klowns remake. I mean, there isn't like a huge like update on it, but it seems like we're going to get a remake of it, which honestly seems much more likely in terms of like, I mean, I hate to go this route, but in terms of like marketability, it seems more likely that a studio would go for that, because Killer Klowns from Outer Space, I would say the following and fandom for that movie is probably at its highest at this point. Like, more people know about it and are fans of it probably more than ever now. And so because of that, I think them being like, we could do a sequel, but we could also just play it safe and do a remake, because if we do a remake, it'll please fans like me who are like diehard fans of the original movie, and also it could introduce like a new generation to this movie, so that if this one works out well, then we can do the sequel. Might be a smarter way to go about it, because if it doesn't work out, it'll just be a crappy remake, and that's all it is, and people can still enjoy the earlier movie, such as myself. So maybe it's a better way to go. Because, you know, it is kind of a fairly, I wouldn't call Killer Klowns from Outer Space an obscure movie, but I wouldn't say it's like super popular. I would say it's like more known than it is. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's obscure, but I wouldn't say it's like super popular to the point where you want to like do a sequel to it that's like put in theaters and everything, you know, because when you do a sequel to a movie, like it's built on relying on the fact that people that are already fans of the first movie are going to show up. And I feel like maybe the execs or something like that are like, yeah, we could do a sequel, but also like this movie is well known, but like not tons of people really know about, like not tons of people have seen this movie probably. Like, and by tons, I mean like, I doubt millions of people have seen it probably, or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm just saying that I feel like it is a safer bet to do a remake, but at the same time, as a fan of Killer Klowns, I would like to see a sequel. I don't really know. Either way, just anything new from Killer Klowns that we're getting, I'm excited to see. But yeah, he's producing it, and I'm a huge fan of Ryan Gosling. I loved his performance in Blade Runner. I loved him in La La Land, and I just really like him as an actor. So honestly, him producing it and hopefully starring in the movie would be great. I'd love to see him star as, I mean, it'd be cool to see him as Mike Tobacco, but honestly, him playing the cop in the movie, I forget the name of the cop that helps out that's like the good guy in the movie that helps him out. I think it'd be cooler to see him as that character. I'm really curious to see who's going to play Mooney, like the really crappy cop. I'm curious to see who would play him. But yeah, man, I really hope we get this, man. I hope we get this. I hope it actually is happening. I'm curious if there's any like recent updates with it. Are there? I hope so. I mean, according to Reddit, a Reddit post from about a year ago, he's rebooting it. It was acquired by Amazon in 2022. I mean, yeah, I mean, it looks like it'll probably happen. I'm just hoping it actually happens, man, because I'm a huge fan of the movie. But with other stuff, also speaking of The Fly, since I mentioned it earlier, we're also going to get a Fly movie. We're also probably going to get a new, like a remake of The Fly starring Adam Driver, which I'm super into that idea. Like, The Fly is a really cool movie. It really is. But I will say it is one of the few movies that's like actually made me like go like, oh, while I'm watching it, because the makeup effects in that movie are so cool, like so cool. And the only thing that makes me a little like hesitant, I don't know if apprehensive is the right word, but one of the few things that makes me hesitant to immediately jump on a remake of a movie of like, oh my God, this is going to be awesome, is really because like I love that we can use CGI now a lot more. But one of the, like, and honestly, Killer Klowns from Outer Space has this in common with The Fly for me, is I love the practical effects of Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Like, that's one of the reasons I love it. I love that it's like this goofy idea, but I'm just going to be honest, if Killer Klowns from Outer Space was like just a totally CGI movie, like if it was an animated movie or something like that, I would still probably really like it. But what made me love it was it had that 80s camp vibe combined with really well done 80s special effects. And that's what makes me love it. Like these days, I love the live action, like practical effects that have the 80s vibe with it, and it being just like a campy over the top movie. Like, that's what makes me love it. And what The Fly has in common with that, what makes me love that movie is, of course, it's not a campy movie, but the makeup effects in that movie are so incredible. And also, it's just so over the top at the same time. Not in a campy sort of way. It's just super over the top in the sense where they're not afraid to just be super gross. And I'm not going to lie, like, one of the things that makes me a little hesitant to see a remake of The Fly and Killer Klowns from Outer Space, and also just remakes in general, is I'm just hoping they don't go too far with like the use of CGI. Are there aspects of Killer Klowns from Outer Space and maybe The Fly that could be enhanced with CGI? Sure, I'm sure there probably are. There's at least like, you could probably take the same approach as they did in the 80s and then just sprinkle CGI over stuff here and there to just make it look extra clean and extra good. You could do that. Like, that's definitely I think that's an understandable approach at least. But at the same time, though, I just don't want them to overdo it. And that's always just been a very classic cliche concern of people watching remakes, but I think it's understandable. I don't want them to just overdo it with CGI. I would like just do that scene when Jeff Goldblum, his character, when he fully becomes the Fly and you see the Fly head just like emerge from his human head as it like basically falls off. That's such a gross, disgusting scene. But at the same time, it's so cool. It's so well done. I remember when I was a young kid, I think my dad was watching it, and I came into the room as he was watching it, or it was either that or it was just like on the TV. I just know that my dad really liked that movie when I was a kid, so maybe it was on the TV because he was watching it. But anyway, I walked in, and I think I watched like the bulk of the movie, and not the whole thing. I think I watched it, and it started like, I started watching it at the point when Jeff Goldblum is starting to like climb the walls, and he's starting to like look really kind of infected by the Fly. That's when I started watching it, and somehow I figured out, either I was told or I somehow just found out in that moment. I'm pretty sure I was just told, like, yeah, he combined himself with a Fly. I knew that, and I watched the rest of it, and just the scene when like he fully becomes like this disgusting hot like Fly humanoid, and the Fly head emerges out of his. That scene like legitimately scared me. Like, I'm not gonna lie, man, as a kid and even now, I like was watching it and I just couldn't help but think,
I am
so scared. You know, because I just was terrified, man. You know, but now these days, I just look at that movie and I look at the effects and I go, sweet! I think it's so cool. But at the same time, there is a part of me that still just thinks to myself, I am so scared. You know, because it's pretty well done. It's pretty well done. But, you know, the only thing that makes me just, you know, hesitant again is I just hope they don't overdo it with the CGI, because like the makeup effects, I mean, they're cool from a craftsmanship perspective. Like even if they don't look completely real, they just look really good. But something about just the real effects being used, like the actual in-person practical effects, makes it look real, man. It makes it look closer to being real. And should they use like CGI and stuff to enhance that, to make it look more real, I totally see opportunity there, sure. But I'm just saying, I think they should at least, I think it would be dumb not to utilize modern effects to make it look even better. But I would say keep the base of practical effects and like real studio stage sets being built and locations to use for shooting it, all that stuff. I think that's definitely still work with that base, and then maybe just use the CGI to just spice it up here and there. Like there's that scene when Mike and Debbie in Killer Klowns from Outer Space, they are wandering through the spaceship, and they come to the part where it's like the open part of the spaceship and the inside. And that scene, it looks really cool in the movie, but at the same time, that is one part of it that you could argue looks a little bit dated. So maybe that scene, when you see like the full inside open part of the Killer Clown ship, you could use CGI to make that look a lot better. Maybe the scene when the Killer Clown ship is flying away, definitely use that. You could also use the part when, I think it's like Jojo the Clown, or no, Clownzilla, like the huge clown leader. That scene when they're inside the ship and it's like the Clownzilla leader and there's clowns all over the place, you can use CGI to obviously enhance the background of that and make it look just way bigger. And you could probably CGI out. You can do kind of Lord of the Rings is a good example of like blending practical effects with CGI, because like, let's just be honest, you can't do Lord of the Rings without CGI. You can do Killer Klowns without CGI. We know that for a fact. But you could use CGI in the same way Lord of the Rings did, where you could help enhance it, like with Lord of the Rings using kind of like digitized characters from afar. Like they would kind of make tons of like individual computerized digital Uruk-hai or orcs or whatever fighters to put in the background for huge, like, you know, overhead shots of Helm's Deep and things like that. You honestly could take the bigature approach, where you can make the Killer Klowns from Outer Space ship a bigature, like a miniature that's just really, really big. And then you could use that kind of CGI effect where you could add in these like little clowns in the background, but have predominantly the clowns be, you know, people in costumes. You could do that, and that would probably work, but we'll see. But yeah, either way, I'm excited to see it. And if it doesn't turn out good, like, we still got the original movie, man. We still got the original movie to enjoy and just be huge fans of, dude. And I will always be a huge fan of that movie. I first watched that movie on Netflix when I was like, I'm going to say like, how old was I? I'm going to say like 9. I'm going to say like 9 or 10 was when I first watched that movie. And I remember seeing like the movie poster for it on Netflix. This is when Netflix was like just on your computer, and you would scroll down it and you would see all like just the classic movie posters being used for it. And I remember seeing the movie poster for Killer Klowns from Outer Space and just thinking, what? Killer Klowns from Outer Space? What is this? And I clicked it and watched it, and I was like, this is the coolest movie I've ever seen. I was a little scared of it, I'm not gonna lie. Here and there, it was a little spooky, but as I get older, I'm just like, this is the coolest movie I've ever seen. It's still in my top 10. Like, hands down, in my top 10. Faux show, man. Faux show. Also, yeah, I mean, with like my favorite horror movies of all time, you know, I mean, we can go over like my top 10 favorite horror movies. So I'm not sure if I have a top 10, but like, let's start with the top 5. Like, definitely The Shining and Killer Klowns from Outer Space are in there. Those ones are definitely pretty cool and pretty spooky. But also, Quiet On, great movie. Hellraiser 2, I'm a big fan of, and Hellraiser 1. I think I just like Hellraiser 2 a lot more, but that's just me. Also, what else? Hereditary definitely scared the absolute F out of me. Like, that movie, I was like, just like terrified with it. And to the point where by the end, I just sounded like, That's how I sounded throughout the entire movie watching. I was definitely like legit afraid, dude. I was afraid. And the whole time I just was trying to like hype myself up and just trying to keep myself going through it, man. I was just telling myself, you got it. Oh, that's where it is. You got it. Oh no, anyway. But yeah, it was a pretty scary movie. It was a pretty scary movie. And it was to the point where I was screaming so much that everybody else in my apartment at the time were just saying,
say it, don't spray it, brother. Dang. I need a towel now.
But you know what?
That's life.
That's life, man. Sometimes things are scary. But yeah, Hereditary's in there. Also, Midsommar. I really liked that movie. I thought that movie was really cool. Yeah, so we got Killer Klowns, we got The Shining, we got Midsommar, Hereditary, Hellraiser 2, Quiet On. It's actually stacking up pretty quick. I'm trying to think of the other horror movies I'm a big fan of. I'm trying to, Killer Klowns is in there, so I was going to say I should try to exclude campy movies, but I do really like them. I was going to say Leprechaun. I'm just going to put it in there, man. Leprechaun, I really like it. Leprechaun's just fun, dude. If Leprechaun in Space specifically is really, really fun. You got to love Leprechaun. Also Nightbreed. I really like Nightbreed. That's a cool movie. I don't know if this counts as like a complete horror movie, but Little Monsters, that movie is really cool. The one from the 80s with Howie Mandel, it just has really cool like makeup effects in it, and I like the story of it, and I watched it a lot when I was a kid, so like I think all that added up makes me just really like it. And trying to think, and Bram Stoker's Dracula, that one is like way up there, dude. I love that movie. Bram Stoker's Dracula, incredible movie. That's in like my top 5. If I had to like rank them in order, my number 1 is The Shining, 2 is Quiet On, 3 is probably Bram Stoker's Dracula. I just love the effects and the set design. It's just such a cool movie. Yeah, Keanu Reeves doesn't put on an amazing performance, but I still really like it. Number 4, we're going to go probably Hellraiser 2. And then number 5, we'll probably go probably Hereditary. That movie just freaked me out and was just such a good experience to watch. And it's very rewatchable. It's actually one of the few movies that if you watch it like on the second go, it's more scary when you watch it for a second time, because you know the whole time what's going on. Like, you know, like it just makes it more scary. It's not like scary in the sense where like a twist is ruined, like it just knowing like what the family is going through, and you know what's going on in the background and what the true force of this, it's just even more scary. I would, of course, like jump scares aren't like that bad in the movie, but like it's not a really jump scary movie, I would say. It's a great movie though. I would check it out. If you want a horror movie that will legit terrify you, watch Hereditary. There is some pretty insane stuff in it. There's a lot of decapitation in the movie, but it's still pretty good. Still pretty good. It's one of those movies I wish I got to see in the theater. I watched Midsommar in the theater, and that was pretty spooky, but Hereditary I watched in my bedroom. I was living in a college apartment in Olympia, and I watched that movie in my bedroom with the lights off, and that was terrifying. But yeah, I also love The Witch. I think that's a great movie, and The Lighthouse is really cool. Those 2 Robert Eggers movies are really cool. Nosferatu, that one that he did, I think it's pretty cool. I didn't love it to death, but I thought it was pretty cool. I really liked it. I'd give it probably like an 8 out of 10. I really liked it. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I really liked it. The Lighthouse and The Witch, I would probably put it like 9 out of 10. Like, I just loved it. I loved The Lighthouse for just like how surreal and Lovecraftian it is, and just all that stuff, man. All that stuff. But let's take another quick break, and then I'll talk about some of the content I've been consuming this week, just kind of general nerdy content. And let's listen to a few more ads, and then we'll listen to some Killer Gnome. And talk to you in a minute.
We're getting right back to the music on 88.1 The Berg.
88.1 The Berg would like to thank its proud sponsor, Fourth Ascent Climbing Center. Fourth Ascent is a bouldering gym and learning center located at 308 West 4th Avenue in Ellensburg and is open daily from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Memberships, punch cards, and day passes are available. The center also provides a youth climbing club, summer camps with guided trips, and an intro to bouldering class for all ages. Reservations can also be made for birthday parties or private events. More information can be found at Fourth Ascent on Instagram and Facebook or at fourthascent.com.
All right, that was Killer Gnome with his 2 tracks, Lawn of the Dead and Bloody Pumpkin Patch. Hope you enjoyed those. Those are from his Garden Asylum album from 2024. Check it out. It's on Spotify, other music platforms as well. Yeah, so let's get into the next segment, dude. Let's talk about just general nerdy stuff I've been consuming. Let's get cued in by Austin Powers.
Nerd alert!
Oh, yeah. Thank you, sir. But yeah, what I've been consuming this week, I mean, I'm just on like a Roman Empire kick, dude. Like ancient Greece / Roman Empire, just like everything like pre 500 AD or pre fall of the Western Roman Empire. I've been just so into, man. I mean, I'm by no means an expert, but it's really, really cool. I mean, I thought that the fall of Rome was like, I thought it was like the entire empire was like destroyed by 300 and like only remnants remain. But then like I thought it was really interesting to read that the Eastern Roman Empire, well, first of all, I didn't know it was divided into East and West, and then around the kind of like in the 300 ADs, that's like kind of the fall of the Western Roman Empire, and then the Eastern Roman Empire exists for like another 1,000 years. And I thought that there was like a definitive date of like this is the year, or this is like the few years that the Roman Empire fell and was gone forever, and everything left over are just like ruins and remnants and stuff like that. And I thought that was the case, but it turns out it's like an argued / debated thing of when it officially fell. I mean, you could say the Roman Empire fell in like 300 something AD, with the West Empire falling, and then you could, and there's other people who are like, no, it fell in like the 1400s when, you know, the Byzantine Empire fell, because the Byzantine Empire came from the Eastern Roman Empire. Once the Western Empire fell, the Eastern one became the Byzantine Empire, and once that fell, then that was the end of the Roman Empire, which is pretty interesting. And I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say that like the last like remnant of the Roman Empire that was like officially like in use and was like an actual like Roman thing in use or whatever was like 14 something when Constantinople fell. I guess you could say that that was like arguably the last remnant of the Roman Empire working at all. And then the Roman Empire being founded, I think the Roman Empire was founded a little bit before Alexander the Great died in like 300 BC, something like 340 BC when he died. I think a few years before that, or like 20 years before that, that's when like the start of like that little part of the Roman Empire that like they grew from started to expand a little bit. And then I don't think they became like a full-on empire until, like, meaning they were fully expanded across Europe until like well after Alexander the Great died. So I thought that was pretty interesting to read how Alexander the Great existed and like his empire got built up like before the Romans, and pretty much around when he died was when the Romans started to kind of expand a little bit. So I thought that was pretty interesting to read. And I don't know, it's just I'm definitely entering that kind of, I guess it's like a new thing to say that it's like a phase for every guy. Is like every guy goes through the point in their life where they're obsessed with the Roman Empire for a little bit. And you know what? It's happening to me now. And you know what? I'm super into it, and I think it's really cool. And whenever I read about it, I'm just like, this is so cool. And for anybody that doesn't think it's cool, I just got one word for you, and that is you're being rude. And also another one. Suck it! Because the Roman Empire is cool, man. And you guys can all just, I don't want to be mean. But you know what? You're just a bunch of idiots. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
No one likes you!
Man, I wish I could use that soundbite more than no one likes you one. I mean, once we transition to YouTube and when I make reels, I'll try to use that soundbite and stuff when I transition to other versions of Vicky's Dungeon. But yeah, I've been just on such a kick with that, man. Such a kick. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see, I mean, I know there's HBO's Rome, which I've watched a little bit of, and I think that's really cool, but I would love to see, like, I mean, we were talking about remakes and stuff. I would love to see, like, a modern HBO, like, House of the Dragon level of production done for, like, HBO's Rome. And you can do it, I guess, like, during the time of Caesar, or you could just do the same plot where, like, the first season pretty much, I haven't seen the whole thing, but I'm pretty sure the first season follows, like, Caesar trying to like seize power, and then him ultimately getting assassinated. Like, you could do the same thing. I mean, I feel like people probably think that's probably the most interesting part of the Roman history, but it's the Roman Empire, like, was around for a long time. Like, even before the West Empire fell, I think it was around for at least like 500 years. Like, the West Empire was around, and then the Eastern Empire is around for another 1,000 years after that. So you could argue that technically, at least, the Roman Empire was around for 1,500 years, which is pretty insane, dude. Because I feel like, when I read the history of, the U.S. and stuff like that, I think like, man, we've been around for 250 years. Like, that's a long time, man. That's pretty crazy. And then I used to think like, wow, that's such a long time. And then as I was getting older, when I was like a kid, I'd be like, well, I mean, England's been around for so long. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say like the country itself, but like obviously it has been around for a long time. Like like the official line of kings starts with William the Conqueror. And so that goes back 1,000 years. So of course that's an insanely long time. But then you think about the Roman Empire and you're like, that's been like 1,500 years. And you look at, places like, Macedonia still exists. It's not like the Alexander the Great kind of like level of empire that it was, but like Macedonia still exists. The town that Alexander the Great was born in still exists, Pella. And that's been around for like close to 2,500 years, 10 times the amount of time, almost 10 times the amount of time that the U.S. has been around, which is like crazy to me, man. It's crazy. And yeah, I remember someone saying like this Roman like historian saying like, yeah, one of the reasons like it's such an interesting thing to read about with the Roman Empire is when you look at Europe, when you look at it now, it's like a bunch of little countries. And then when you look at, pretty much the Roman Empire was like the only time when that part of the world was for the most part under the rule of one nation, pretty much. I mean, there were obviously other nations and stuff around, but it was at a time in history where the kind of nations and kingdoms of Europe had yet to fully form, and most of them come from Rome. Like pretty much. I mean, when you look at the British Isles and kind of just the UK, prior to the Romans arriving, it was compromised. It was comprised of lots of clans and tribes and people that were forming into probably, like, had the Romans not arrived, they would have formed into kingdoms. They were just on the trajectory of not being kingdoms yet. And then the Romans come in under, I forget what Roman emperor was the one who was like, yeah, we're gonna go into this area up north, and we're gonna invade this big island up north. But I don't know who it was, but it was pretty much the kingdoms of England, pretty much, and of that area, formed from the Romans. Like, they came from the Romans, which is pretty cool, man. I think that's really, really interesting. And I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I think it's really cool. I think it's a really cool thing. What else have I been into? Also been reading a lot about, I've always just been so into Mortal Kombat, dude. Like, this soundbite right here, the one that goes, "Welcome!" Like, that's literally from the Mortal Kombat movie from 1995, which is still my favorite, like, Mortal Kombat adaptation. Not because like I saw it when I was a kid and there are some nostalgic elements to it, but at the same time, I just love like that 90s cool kind of vibe. And I love that Mortal Kombat kind of had that at the time. And I thought it was interesting when I read that the first Mortal Kombat movie, I think, came out, just a little bit after Mortal Kombat 3 came out. Because for some reason, I thought only the first 2 games were out. But, well, I think it went into production and everything when the first 2 games were out. But the third one came out, I think, maybe only like a few months before the Mortal Kombat movie. So at least like the script for it was written prior to Mortal Kombat 3 coming out, which is pretty interesting. But I like that movie. There is nostalgia for it, but I think what makes me like it more is it was made at the time before Mortal Kombat had such an expansive universe and lore and tons of characters and everything. So there was less to work with, therefore less of an error, really. Like, you can forgive a lot of its I guess, flaws. Part of the reason you have like Christopher Lambert playing Raiden is like, we didn't really know who Raiden was at the time. We only had like 2 games of him out that the movie was based on. And then you have just all this stuff, man. You have all this stuff with with Christopher Lambert. It's really interesting. I really like it. But what was I going to say? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Because we're officially not streaming. We're just recording it now. So hopefully if you're listening to this on YouTube, you'll know that the show has gone beyond the streaming amount. We're just recording at this point. But what was I going to say? Yeah, I'm just super into that stuff, man. I love the 3D era, but I love the Mortal Kombat 95 movie mainly because it was just so, like, I love just the 90s cool vibes with it, man. And I love how Scorpion and Sub-Zero just look like these very just kind of like the production value on their, or production like budget spent on their costumes isn't like a ton, but I like just how simple they look. They kind of are sort of like akin to Power Rangers. Like I think it looks cool. I like the new movies a lot. I don't know, like I'm just not gonna lie, like I'm not trying to be mean, but like the Mortal Kombat 2021 movie, like I'm just gonna be honest, like it totally sucks. Like it really does, man. Like it really does. Like, and I was so disappointed after watching it. Like as a fan of Mortal Kombat, I just was like, man, like I'm fine with you guys taking creative liberties and things being a little bit different here and there. Like good example is like there's differences in the Lord of the Rings movies that there's a few that I think are like make sense. Like I think are better than the book. Like the main one being the Oathbreakers being brought to Minas Tirith. Like that's so much cooler, dude. That's so much cooler. Like I love that idea. And there's a few differences like here and there. Like I like that Aragorn is like reluctant to be king, you know, and just those are just like two dimension. But with the Mortal Kombat movie though, I don't know, it just felt like it just was way just like it was so different from the games, and I hated the stupid like Arcana thing that was there. I can kind of forgive that with the Mortal Kombat 2 movie from the 90s, but like I don't know, like I can kind of forgive that, but at the same time Mortal Kombat Annihilation, I can just have fun with it, and it still was very much during the time of Mortal Kombat being kind of a more campy, just over-the-top, crazy video game. And the story still, I feel like the story for Mortal Kombat didn't really start to take kind of full whim, where like this is a world with a in-depth story and tons of characters. Like this is a fully fleshed out world now. I feel like that didn't really start to happen until like the 3D games. I feel like the first 3 games and Mortal Kombat 4 were kind of in its developing stages, and then the 3D games was when the story really started to take hold, especially with Mortal Kombat Deception, which to me is like one of the best Mortal Kombat games. Like to me, that's in the top 3. Like if I had to rank my first personal favorite, like top 3 games in Mortal Kombat, I would say, well, maybe not Mortal Kombat Deception was when it fully started to take hold, but like I don't know, like I can forgive Mortal Kombat 2. But anyway, my top 3 games would be Deception is like my number 1. Number 2 is probably Mortal Kombat X. I really like that game. And then number 3 is Mortal Kombat 3. I really like, those are my top 3 for sure. And honestly, Mortal Kombat 11 is really cool. I like elements of it for sure. In Mortal Kombat 1, I didn't even play, so I can't really fully rank it, but I don't know. I think I played it once at a friend's house, and it just wasn't my thing. And I've heard a lot of people don't like it, and I just freaking hate time traveling, dude. Like I look at time traveling stuff and I just think it totally sucks. Like not for all of it, but I'm not gonna lie, like most of the time, like outside of like Back to the Future and other exceptions, like where it's done really, really well, I feel like for the most part time travel it's just hard to pull off. That's all I'm saying. It's hard to pull off. But I really like the 3D era of Mortal Kombat a lot. And but the 2021 movie, I just thought was like, it just was so different from the games that I kind of in a way like felt kind of almost like disrespected as a fan. I was like, okay, I'm fine with you changing things, but like not only have you changed so much, but also a lot of these changes just don't add up. Like what in the frick, man? I almost said the F word, but like what in the F, dude? What in the F? Like I'm not gonna lie, a lot of those changes, I just wanted to be like, red. Like come on, dude. I felt disrespected. But also, yeah, and so I liked the new movie, but like it had remnants of the older 2021 movie that I just was like, honestly, like there's a lot of this new movie I really like, but the fact that there's remnants of the old movie in this, like I just think this sucks, dude. Like I thought Ludi Lin as Liu Kang was pretty cool. I think he's honestly really well cast in the role. I don't think Cole Young, the actor, deserves any hate, but I just think they should have just gotten rid of the guy. Didn't he die in the movie? Does he die in the movie? I don't remember, honestly. Well, still, I just was like, okay, Cole Young is still here. A lot of this, I just would rather them just do a do-over. But maybe the next movie will be great because I really liked Johnny Cage in the movie. I loved Baraka. Most of the new stuff I really liked. I thought it was still a really cool movie. Just the fact that there were so many remnants of the first movie just made me go, God, I want to get into this, but I just hate that first movie, man. I hate it. The moment that like made me like think this movie like sucks was when I was watching the 2021 movie and how they had Reptile in the movie because his real name is Syzoth and they were like sending Syzoth to kill them. And he just is like this alligator man. Like, I get that in the 3D era, like with Deadly Alliance, like he becomes more of like this like full-on alligator ninja, but like, and I don't think that design is terrible. And I love the idea of Reptile or Syzoth starting off as like just a very human-looking ninja that can show bits of like his like Zaterran form coming out with his powers. And I like the idea of over time he just slowly just reverts to his Zaterran form as like his default look. I like that idea, but him just starting off as just like Deadly Alliance Reptile basically, and him not being like the Green Ninja at all just makes me annoyed. That just pissed me off, man. I just thought that sucked. And I also just thought, like, I also didn't like who they got to play Shang Tsung. He's a cool actor. I liked him in The Dark Knight and other stuff he did, but I just didn't like him as Shang Tsung, really. I didn't like the guy who they got to play Raiden. Like, he's fine, I guess, but, like, I was excited to watch the movie, the second one, and then once I saw the guy they have playing Raiden come back, I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot that I freaking hate this guy as Raiden. Like, I'm sure he's a really good actor, and I'm not saying he's bad or anything. I'm just saying that he was probably offered the role of Raiden and said yes, because who wouldn't say yes to that? I'm not blaming him. I just think he was really poorly cast. Like, I don't like this version of Raiden. But that's just me talking. I mean, I'm not saying you have to agree with me or anything, and if I'm wrong, please tell me I'm wrong. But that was like the one part that I hated the most, because Raiden isn't like my top 3 favorite characters. My top 3 favorite characters in Mortal Kombat are, in no particular order, Raiden, Sub-Zero, and probably Reptile as well. And I hated that version of Raiden. I honestly love the Christopher Lambert version of Raiden the most. I like how he's like kooky and goofy and kind of weird. I really like the 3D version of him where like he kind of goes Dark Raiden. I love that version of him in the 3D era games when he's Dark Raiden. He's Dark Raiden for, I believe, 2 and 3, I think. I'm not 2 and 3, Deception and Armageddon, but he might just be Dark in Armageddon. No, he's Dark Raiden in Deception and Armageddon. He's regular Raiden in Deadly Alliance, and that version of him I think is really cool too. But I just didn't like how he just didn't, I don't know, like the guy playing the new Raiden, like I'm sure he's a great actor and everything, but he just kind of looks like a guy dressed up as Raiden. Like, it just doesn't feel like Raiden when maybe if they gave him the long white hair, that would make him feel more like a Raiden, but I don't know. But I don't know, like I'm really happy that it's doing really well, but I do think the woman that they got to play Katana, the Jade actor, Shao Kahn, all the stuff that they've added to the new movie, like Baraka, Shao Kahn, Katana, Jade, other characters, Sindel, of course, and the fact that they worked in like multiple iconic stages in a really smart way, I thought all of that was really, really well done and really cool. And I loved how they had Jared, the King of Edenia, and they had the Edenia background and stuff like that added in. I loved all of that. I thought all of that was really well done and really, really cool. The only thing the only thing that made me not like it was just the remnants of the older movie, but that's just me talking, man. That's just me. Yeah, I think I'm going to end the show, though, to be honest. I hate to do it, but let's end it on a more positive note. Honestly, the Mortal Kombat 2 movie was really good. I did really enjoy a lot of it, for sure. And honestly, I'm excited for the next movie because I'm really happy we got to see Quan Chi in it. But the reason why I'm so excited for the next movie is we're going to probably see more of Quan Chi. I hope we get to see the Deadly Alliance because they've said that they're, I think, going to do Shinnok or Onaga. I'm not really sure which one they'll do. But either way, I think we'll see more of Quan Chi because Quan Chi is like pretty much like second-hand man to Shinnok. So I'm excited to see more of him for sure. And I'm just excited for it for sure, man. I mean, I didn't hate the second one. I was not a fan of the first one, but the second one I really, really enjoyed. I really, really enjoyed it for sure. Just when I was reminded, oh yeah, Goro's dead because he got owned by the newbie. And also, oh yeah, like we're not going to see Reptile either because he was just really badly done in that movie. And also, well, the things that I thought were really cool about the first one is I loved how what's his name? Why am I forgetting? Cabal. Cabal is like one of my favorite characters. If I had a top 5, he would be 4. Outside of Raiden, Scorpion, Raiden, Sub-Zero, and Reptile, he's definitely number 4 is Cabal. I love Cabal. And he looked freaking awesome in that movie. Like, he looked freaking awesome. That's what I was thinking when I was watching Cabal in the 2021 movie. I thought he looked great. I thought Reiko was really cool in it. I also really appreciated that they brought out Natara, who was like an obscure 3D era character. I thought that was really, really cool. And just stuff like that. So I'm hoping, though, we get to see Fujin in the next movie. That'd be really, really cool. But those aspects I loved, and I would love to see them somehow bring Cabal back, because that's the thing about Mortal Kombat. Nobody actually really dies in it. Like, every character in Mortal Kombat has died at least like once or twice canonically in the storyline, and that's been brought back. Like, I'm sure we can get Cabal back, and we could probably get Goro back, you know? And you know what? Maybe they can make it work with Cole Young. I don't know. But honestly, that movie has grown on me a little bit. I don't think it's terrible, the 2021 movie. There's aspects I really like. 2026, the sequel movie, Mortal Kombat 2, I really liked. I didn't love it, but I really liked it. I would give it like a 7 out of 10, just 7 out of 10 flat. But it's in the area, like the realm of me really liking it. And I'm excited for the next one. I hope we get to see more Quan Chi. I hope we get to see like bits of Onaga, the Dragon King. Maybe we'll see the undead army of Onaga, like a little teaser to that at the end, maybe. And I would love to see Deadly Alliance, man. I'd love to see the Deadly Alliance come out and just see Quan Chi and Shang Tsung team up, and we see the Deadly Alliance, man. Like, that's like, I know that Deadly Alliance, the video game, isn't like perfect. I really like the aesthetic of it, and there's parts of it I really like. And I think a lot of character designs in it are really cool. But I love the story of the Deadly Alliance and how that awakens the Dragon King, and how he's the most powerful boss out of like pretty much, aside from Blaze, he's the most powerful boss of all the first timeline of Mortal Kombat. I love Onaga. I love the story of Onaga. And I love the story of deception and all that stuff. I hope we get to see... I wouldn't be surprised if the next movie was kind of primarily centered around Shinnok with the Deadly Alliance, probably. And then the movie after that, if the next one's a success, would be probably seeing Onaga, the Dragon King, and seeing Shujinko show up. I get that Deception isn't like the perfect game, but I love the story of like Shujinko being deceived his whole life, and then he brings out Onaga, the Dragon King, and just... I don't know. I think he's a really cool character. I think Shujinko is underrated as a character. Was he a worthy successor to Liu Kang? No, I wouldn't say he was a worthy successor, but at the same time, that doesn't mean he can still be a great character in his own right. Like, good example is I think Sub-Zero is a great character. Do I think he should straight up replace Liu Kang? No, because he works so well, it's just his own thing. And I think the same thing as, I think similarly of Shujinko. I think he should just be given time, because the idea of him being like this elder, seasoned warrior monk that throughout his life he's learned from the same guy who taught Liu Kang, and he's learned to emulate the moves of other characters. I think that would be really interesting in terms of story there. But yeah, so I'm excited for the next movie. But that's pretty much the show, man. We did a nice long, like 3-hour show to end Vicky's Dungeon in the 881 The Berg studio. But just know, we're gonna come back, man. We're gonna come back, and we're gonna do we're going to come back in the next few months on YouTube. We'll do some YouTube episodes, and we'll be doing like social media posts until then. And if we end up not doing YouTube, just because maybe there's a chance I don't have time, I'll at least keep the social media going, man, because I really enjoyed making the Instagram reels of like highlights of the episodes. And if I just do that, like, I'll definitely make it feel like the radio show, but just in an Instagram reel format. But yeah, check it out, man. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're at Vicky's Dungeon on TikTok and Instagram, where I just upload the reels and highlights of the show. And I'll also do some kind of like solo, just like standalone reels of me just talking about other stuff. And it'll be cool, man. It'll be cool. I'll keep the show going, but I'll try to. But I really want to have like guests on the show, and hopefully even a co-host as well. Like, I would love to have a co-host, because I'm not gonna lie, I do love like speaking out into the void and hoping that I have fans that listen, like at least a few people that regularly tune in, like at least semi-regularly. But at the end of the day, like I would love to have that and a co-host to do it with, man. Because when I've had Taylor on the show, it's been so much more fun just like talking like like talking to a person and hopefully having people, listen to our conversation about this stuff. So hopefully I can get a co-host, but even if I can't get that, I'd love to use the show as a way to interview, people from franchises we've talked about on the show, and also interview more dungeon synth artists and just stuff like that. But yeah, dude. You gotta love Vicky's Dungeon, and this is not the end, dude. We're gonna keep going in some way. Just keep an eye on the social media, dude, and I'll announce on there if we do. I'll announce it if we do. If we bring the podcast back, I'll announce it. But if not, I'll still keep making reels because I really enjoyed making them on there. Because sadly, it's the end of my college career. I'm graduating, or I've technically already graduated pretty much. I've finished off my finals and everything. Graduation was the other day. I'm pretty much done. The only thing I'm waiting for is for my finals to be like fully graded, but like, I'm pretty sure I'll pass. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad, dude. I didn't think I would, I don't know. I fantasized, like, I would think about, oh yeah, it'll be, like, I'll get to the point where I do a last show and it'll be really cool and awesome. And it has been awesome. Don't get me wrong. I love, doing the show and having fun on here and talking about my stuff. And it's been fun. Don't get me wrong. Like, I sometimes would, like, show up to the studio, like, 2 hours before I'd go on because I would just have so many things that I would be excited to, like, prep for the show. Like, sometimes I would show up and I would spend like an hour just making sound bites, and then I would spend like another hour putting together like the show notes and everything. And outside of the show, I would spend a long time like watching movies to review for the show and putting together clips for the Instagram. I really enjoy it, man. Like, this full package, I really enjoy, and I really just want to keep doing it, But I'll play us out once I sign us off with like a more not bitter, but kind of a sweeter song, that hopefully you'll enjoy. Yeah, I mean, let's end it like I always do. I'll end it with the piece of advice that I would say consistently for a while before it evolved into other ones. I'll start with that, and then I'll give a new piece of advice just to, that way whoever wants either one will get the advice they're looking for, hopefully. Whether it's good times or bad times, man, just try to enjoy it. Try to make the most of where you're at. Like, I did this whole show because I wanted to make the most of where I was at. I wasn't happy living in Ellensburg. I just wanted to get away, but I couldn't transfer to another school because I would have just had to prolong my college career. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to finish. And I also couldn't just drop out of college. And I wasn't going to do that. And I also like couldn't really afford to like just move somewhere else and just do it online. At least I didn't think I should have. So I was just kind of forced to stay here for another full year. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm not going to just be like a negative Nancy about this. I'm not going to just make life worse than it has to be. Because I mean, I just was pretty, bummed out that I had to stay because I didn't want to stay in Ellensburg. It's just a small town where there's not much going on. And anyways, I just was like, okay, well, I'm not going to have this very narrow-minded kind of like cloudy mindset of like everything sucks, because that's just going to like cloud, my vision of what I can see, what I can do stuff with. And one of the things was like, you know what? I did like a little radio show, just like an audio show where I just played music I liked last year. It was kind of fun, but I think I would want to do it again, but actually talk about stuff instead, not just play music and then just like mention stuff about the songs in between. I think I actually want to talk about stuff. And so that's what started me going like, all right, I'm going to do Vicky's Dungeon. I'm going to call it like, my name's, I go by Vic, so I'll call it Vicky's Dungeon. Why not? I'll just talk about the stuff I really like, and it'll just be a cool thing that I do once a week, and it'll be a cool experience to have. And I started doing it and I really enjoyed it. And now I've had some really cool times doing this show. I've had some cool times, some cool adventures, and I've just enjoyed it. And I hope if you're a person that's listening that's like regularly tuned in over the past, year almost that I've been doing this show, I thank you for tuning in, man. And yeah, just if it's good times or bad times, like, make the most of it, look for things you can maximize on. And that's one of the things that I did with this. I was like, you know what? I may not love being here, but I know that I can go do that. I can go be a student DJ and have a college radio show / podcast. And I've always wanted to do that. And that opportunity for me to do it with like really cool equipment and everything is right there in front of me. So I think it'd be stupid if I didn't do that. And that, among other things I did, which really brought it up. Like I did like horseback riding. I've been doing that for the past year almost. And that's been a really cool experience too. And, you know, those were the two main things I really utilized on. And also, I think those were the two main things I really just focused on. I could have done more. I wish I did more. But I'm glad that I did this stuff too. I didn't want to just wallow in sadness and just be like, I'll just go to class and then come home and just be sad. I'll be like, no, let's do some other stuff and really just make the most of the time we're here. And I'm really glad I've done it. So yeah, make the most of it, man. Like really just see what you can do to make your life cooler than it is if you want it to. If you're completely content, that's awesome. But either way, like whether it's good times or bad times, like if it's bad times, really see what you can do to make it better. If you're content, awesome. If things are already going great, I would just suggest just enjoy it. You know, like Brody said, just enjoy it, dude. And really just enjoy it and just go all in with
positive energy
all the time, man, all the time. And remember what Scott Hall said, man. You know, if you listen to and Scott Hall, of course, is the iconic professional wrestler that cues us in every time. He's the one that gives us our hey yo. Thank you, Scott. Rest in peace, sir. He said something that years ago I heard when I was going through a really difficult part of my life. And, I don't want to get super sappy or whatever, but, it was a tough time for me. I didn't know if I was going to make it or not. And I remember one of the things that just gave me the strength to get through it was listening to Scott Hall say, hard work pays off. He goes, hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do, And he was known as, and Scott Hall was the famous wrestler Razor Ramon. And his kind of catchphrase was say hello to the bad guy. And what he was trying to say, though, during that Hall of Fame induction speech when he said that line, was he was trying to say, like, tough times don't last, tough people last. And that's so true, man. And I think a way of getting through tough times and making them not last is really just being like, okay, even if I can make this a little bit better, the tough times I'm going through, I'm going to just see if there's a way to do it, and I'll just do that. Even if it's just making it like 10% better or 5%, do it. And if things are going great, I'm happy for you, man. I would just suggest, this is just merely a suggestion, just my opinion, once in a while, just take some time to really drink it in and totally enjoy it and hug it a little extra tight, just stuff like that. Savor it. That's the word. Savor it. That's the phrase. Savor it because you don't know how long it's going to last. Try to just be in the present and just really enjoy it, and also just recognize, I think it's worth recognizing that like bad times make us really enjoy the good times. And that's why I think pain and toughness should be a part of life so that you can enjoy the good times. You can't just if things are just good all the time forever, that's just impossible. Like you're just going to become discontented on some level because that's just how humans are. We can't really, we want change, like at least to a level at certain points. At least that's my opinion. But yeah, just make the most of it. Make the most of it, man. Always make the most of things. Always have the mindset of like a skier going through trees. Like a person who's skiing and they have to go through a patch of trees, they are just going to focus on the path in front of them. They're not going to like assess all the trees that could potentially stop them. They're just going to look for the way through. And I've always I remember hearing that, like have the mindset of a skier that has to go through a patch of trees without stopping. Like they're not going to go through thinking about how many trees they might have to deal with. They're just going to think about how can I get through this? What is the path? And I feel like if there's a thing you want and the path towards that looks intimidating, just focus on that path that may be twisting and turning and pivoting back and forth, and maybe you have to go 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, or maybe you have to take a few steps back and start over here and there. Just keep going. I remember when I saw Tommy Wiseau live, I remember somebody asking him like any advice to people wanting to make it in the just a creative industry, and he's like, keep going, just always keep going, keep moving, man, because at the end of the day, I remember in like my deepest, darkest times when I was not sure if I was going to make it, I remember saying to a therapist, I was like, I feel like if I keep going, I at least have a chance. if I don't keep going, I guarantee things are just going to get worse. Like, and at least you have a chance. Like, if you keep going, I mean, even Seth Rogen said this on a podcast recently. He said, if you keep going, you might make it. If you don't keep going, well, then you just guarantee that you definitely won't make it. And there's totally truth to that, you know, so always keep going, man. Always keep going and make the most of where you're at. As far as like secondary advice to that, like new advice, I would say just give yourself a break, you know, and recognize you have value. You know, it doesn't matter. I don't really care who you are, man. I'm just saying, like, while you're alive and while you're still breathing, there is therefore potential for you to do good in the world and also have a cool life. Like, the opportunity is always there. It's always there. I feel like you just have to see it. And maybe, like, it's not in the version you may like it to see, but it's always there. I feel like, you know, I remember thinking the other day about how Stephen Colbert said it's a gift to exist, and with existence comes suffering. You know, that's the price we pay to exist, is we suffer. You know, we fall on hard times. We deal with things we didn't see coming and just stuff like that. I feel like that's the price we pay to exist. And I feel like because of that, really just like really embrace the value of hard times, and then also just really use that to just live a better life and just drink it in when things are good and drink it in when things are bad, meaning like just fully feel your feelings and fully like embrace what you can learn from those bad times, you know? But yeah, give yourself a break and recognize you have value. You always have value, because while you're alive, while you are still alive and breathing, you therefore have the opportunity to do good for yourself and others in the world. Like, that's just the truth. And also, like I said, just like make the most of things always, whether they're great or bad, or great, bad, you're content. Just always make the most of things. And to sum it all up, man, the thread through all of that is just keep going. Keep going, because if you keep going, as long as you keep going, there will always be a chance that things will work out. If you don't keep going, you guarantee nothing will. I can't guarantee things can work out perfectly, but I can guarantee that if you don't try, they definitely won't, you know? So yeah, those are my 3 pieces of advice. You got 2 new ones. You got one classic one that I've said a few times before, and then a new one. So the one that I would always say to everybody is make the most of your time in your place, no matter where you are and what the time is. Always make the most of things. Always. And on top of that, just, you know, you just know that you have value. Just keep going, because you know you have value. And while you're still living, you have the opportunity to do good. And not just for yourself, but for others, and to hopefully leave the world a better place. So that's the second pillar of my personal philosophy. And then the third pillar that probably holds up the other 2 is just always keep moving, man. Always keep moving. Never surrender. Always keep going, man. Never give up. Never surrender. Always keep moving. And if that means you got to take a break sometimes just to like recharge yourself, absolutely do it, man. Just always keep going. It's kind of like Aragorn's philosophy. Like when Aragorn was with the Fellowship after Gandalf just died, you know, he lets everybody have a rest, but he's like, all right, like on your feet, we got to keep going. And he's not doing that because he's like cruel or rude or anything like that. He recognizes like, no, like I get it. Like something awful just happened. We got to take a break so we can take it all in. But at the end of the day, orcs are coming and we got to keep going on our mission if we want to save the world. So take a rest, because I know that you guys need a rest, but we can't stay there for too long. We just rest for the time that you need to do, for the time that you need to rejuvenate. And then once you rejuvenate, back at it, man. I'm not saying get on the grind. I'm just saying back to living life. You know, if you got to take a break and disappear, or just have an off day or a break or whatever here and there, do it. But once you're rejuvenated, it's back to living life. And if that means you got to get back to work, or you got to, you know, go back to, you know, doing the thing you want to do, or you want to like just go make sure, just, I don't know, like I'm just saying, like take a break if you need to. Take a break and but just always keep moving, man. Always keep moving. It's always keep moving, man. And I hope you guys have enjoyed the show over the last year. And I'm just hoping, if there's anything I hope you got out of it, I hope that it helped you in your life. I hope it helped you in some way. I really do. I hope that it at least entertained you in some way. And if it at least entertained you, I'm really happy that it did. Because I set out to just do a show that I really liked and just enjoyed doing. But at the same time, I really hope that it entertained you and maybe just gave you a break just from the toughness in life. Hopefully it helped you like during the rejuvenating time. Hopefully it helped you, I hope rejuvenate is the right word, but like hopefully it just helped you recharge in life and helped you just give you a break. Because that's why I love all this stuff. Like the reason why people love art and things like that is because life, the reason why people make up stories is other than just understanding the world, it's also just because the real world can suck, And that's why we love art. That's why I love art, movies, music, story, everything, man. Podcasts. It's because it just makes life more fun. That's why we live life. We live life for these things, because if all we did was just, eat, drink, sleep, and that's it, life would not be that great, at least for me. We live life for stuff like this. And I'm really hoping that it at least gave you some kind of a positive effect in your life. I'm not saying it had to be life-changing or anything like that, but I'm hoping that this positively affected people on some level. But yeah, man, make the most of things. Recognize that you have value, and while you are still alive and while you still breathe, you can do good for yourself and others and the world around you. And at the end of the day, take a break if you need to keep going, but also to tie all that together, make sure you always keep going. You're always keeping going. And what I mean by keeping going, you're always working towards or are, whatever it is, living your best life for yourself and hopefully others as well. But yeah, man, stay positive also, dude. Stay positive. I don't mean lie to yourself and say to yourself everything's great. I'm saying like just focus on the fact that things, there's you can make the most of it wherever you are. There's always good things that you can draw on as a resource to make things better. That's just me talking. You can totally disagree with everything I've ever said on this podcast, but just saying, that's just me talking, but I truly believe all that stuff. But yeah, we'll hopefully come back in the next few months on YouTube, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this run, and yeah, I guess I'll talk to you guys soon. I hope you guys have a good summer, and yeah, peace out, everybody. See you later. Playing us out of the show for the radio listeners. Playing us out of the show, we're going to be listening to Asat Sana. It's Anastasia backwards by Effects Twin. If you're familiar with the piece and you're just watching this on YouTube, check it out. And yeah, playing us out, it's Effects Twin. I guess I'll see you guys later. See you later, man.